mute that. All right.
I love the sound effect commentary there.
You like the boop boop?
Boop boop.
All right.
Doesn't work
Well,
without it.
we'll start off here. This is the first podcast we're going to do. Hopefully, we'll do many, many more. And we'll see how that usually works out, right?
Right.
Okay, so this is the first NinjaFox Games and Geekery podcast on April 7th, 2019. I'm Jeff, and I'm joined by Phil and Brian, and not in the podcast, but potentially joining on rare occasions if he gets up against the mic is Toby, the cat.
Yay.
And Brian, I assume there's a chance that Noct will chime in if he barks in the background.
Possibly. He's pretty quiet most of the time, though. So.
Okay.
Sorry, I got nothing on that. I'm trying to tweet the podcast out there. So
That's
my
all
bad.
right. It's the first time we're bumbling around. We don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. Also, I learned that I learned very quickly, in fact, that if I have the YouTube URL open in another tab, I hear the audio delayed by like 5 or 6 seconds. So that's probably a mistake.
Oh yeah, no, you can open it in the other tab, but just go down and mute it. That's what I do.
Oh, okay.
Because that way, like at some point, if you did have people actually watching it or commenting on there, and you want to watch that to kind of moderate or interact with people watching, then you can basically do that without, like you said, without the echo effect, because you would have it playing in the background if you didn't.
Oh, okay.
So I would find some sort of just basic page to have up between. Let's see here. Actually, let's do that.
That works.
So that way I can switch it over whenever we're going to actual articles we're discussing. But until then, I'll just keep this up.
Yay, the logo.
The logo. So, and obviously nothing to do with anything, but on that G, wasn't that going to be yellow and then blend into the orange, or is that you were needing to get into a different program to do that sort of stuff?
I'll probably need to go into Photoshop or Manga Studio.
Okay. Yeah, this is just your first round.
Yeah.
All right. So let's just go through and start off with introductions, and I mean this is the first one, so we'll kind of probably go a little bit further into topics that are kind of background sort of stuff. So who wants to start off just with an introduction? And I guess let's start off with like when you started playing games and getting into all this stuff that we're talking about.
Dear God.
Ages ago, so everyone can be like, these people are old.
It's true.
I make no secret of that. I'm 37 and I'm okay with it.
Probably the youngest looking of us too.
I think you are the youngest of us because I'm August.
I'm literally the youngest of you three. Of you two.
Of you three, the third. Who's the third that you're seeing that isn't physically on? You're talking about Toby? No, actually, Toby's younger than you. Sorry.
Oh.
Noct is the youngest.
Yes.
So okay, well I'll start off. So, Jeff is my name, and I started my introduction to video games was actually with a Pac-Man arcade, as well as a Galaga arcade, and I actually can't remember which one was first, but at a Dairy Queen in a small town that I grew up in down in Texas, in case you notice an accent. After that, my friend down the street had an Atari 2600, and at the time, unlike everyone else says now, I thought Pac-Man on Atari 2600 was awesome, mainly probably because I didn't have to lose quarters for it. I could just play it. You don't care if the graphics are bad. I think Choplifter was one of my favorite games on Atari, and then after that, we had like a little fundraiser at school, and the grand prize if you sold the most tickets was $100. And my parents would not buy me a Nintendo. So, oh goodness, that's loud. Uh,
What?
I had a chime on my side,
Oh,
just shutting something down. Um, so basically, I won that deal with the assistance. I actually had to sell the tickets, but my parents obviously took me around to different places. But I had to actually go up to everyone and do the whole spiel of what it was for, what we're selling, blah blah blah. And so I won the $100, and I used that to buy the Nintendo myself, and that kind of started a childhood, I guess, running trend of I had to buy all my systems on my own. So whether it was save up allowance or mowing the lawns or whatever, I just had to buy each system on my own. I would get video games for Christmas or birthdays if I asked for them, but the systems I had to pony up the cash on my own there. I remember the last one I clearly remember is Super Nintendo. I bought that down in Houston, Texas, when we were visiting a great aunt. After that, I don't specifically remember like going and buying each system at this place or that place or what the trip was, except for I remember the game, not the system, but the PS2. The first games I bought were actually purchased in Canada.
eh. Were they like really chilly when you picked them up, or
No, no, it was inside a mall with air conditioning and everything, and they had the heat on, and it was very, very warm.
that's good?
Yeah, they don't. Canada doesn't just leave windows open and deal with the cold because they're all super tough.
That's
We
right.
have our first chat comment.
Oh,
Oh
but
no,
there's a
no,
comment. How does
Yes,
that happen?
someone's
magic.
actually watching this.
It's on the YouTubes.
Someone's watching this. I'm sorry.
Hey, look, here
It's
it is.
RG.
That's what I thought. I couldn't recognize the icon. It's so tiny, but that's. I had a feeling that that was him.
He should be in this, but you'll be in a later popcast.
It's
Popcast.
close. It's an upside down D.
Yeah, sure. Don't don't encourage him.
I'm the kind of person who encourages everyone.
Okay, I got nothing.
Did did I actually say popcast on Twitter? That'd be great. Okay, so I'll just call on you one by one. Brian, you want to give your background on the
Sure.
Vigi games?
Yeah. I'm Brian, as he said. Um, when I started playing games, I don't even remember. It's been so long ago. I do remember like the first time I played uh an NES, it was my next door neighbors, and that would have been in probably 87, 88, somewhere in there. Um, and I really enjoyed that. He had oh, he also had an Atari too, now that I think about it. But on the NES, I enjoyed the Olympics game. I can't think of what it's called. Um, and was it track and field? I think it was track and field. It came with like the big pad that
Oh,
you would run on, and
was
uh,
it world class track meet?
that may be it. Yeah. And he also had Legend of Zelda. That's the first time I played Legend of Zelda and fell in love with it. And of course, Super Mario Brothers. Um, I've been playing games ever since. Got my first console, which was an NES, as a Christmas present. And then after that, I got a Sega Genesis. And then all the consoles that I got after that were I had to buy on my own. Fun fact about that Genesis is I bought it from a friend of mine because it had stopped working for him and he had gone into it and opened it up and cleaned it out. And he sold it to me kind of expecting that it wouldn't last very long. And I still have it and it still works. And that
Nice.
was in the uh, early to mid 90s. So I guess he did a good job cleaning it out. But
That goes to the whole, you know, Game Boy can get hit with an explosive device and continue to function, and then modern systems get jostled in its red ring of death.
right.
Yeah.
It's or the was the switch. Was it the left controller? I got one of those that kept disconnecting.
Hmm.
They apparently had to put in a little bit of foam or something because a piece of it was overheating, if I remember what I
Oh,
read.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
To my
Anywho.
to my knowledge, I don't have that problem. Either that or just haven't played my Switch enough. But I did play through Breath of the Wild, so I would assume I played it enough to run into problems. I played through the whole thing just using the Joy-Con controller, like the two mounted onto a controller. So I would assume that's enough time for it to have a problem if it was going to have a problem. So fingers crossed, it stays good.
Yeah, it's not covered by warranty anymore at this point. I found out the hard way. Ended
Oh,
up having to pay for Nintendo to fix it, but that's okay. It works now. Of course, it doesn't have a problem if you're using it undocked. It's just, fun times. Anyway, I'm gonna turn it over to Philip, I guess.
Hi, I'm Phil. My experience with gaming is wow, it goes back to when I was about 4 years old, 4 or 5. My parents owned an Atari 2600. Um, I wasn't very good at it. I mean, obviously, I was a toddler. But the first game that my parents got for me specifically, was Junior Pac-Man, port of the arcade game that Namco disavows. Uh, I mean, I loved the Atari 2600. I played it all the time. Um, when we finally got an NES, I want to say it was 1986, 87. Super Mario Brothers became kind of an obsession, and my parents uh, got really big into JRPGs, which is a big part of what got me into JRPGs. And so when the SNES came out, and my mom saw that the sequel to Final Fantasy was going to be on it, they got one pretty much immediately. Um, After that, I kind of started, like Jeff did, started buying my own consoles. I purchased my own Sega Genesis, the original Game Boy, like shortly after it was released. Um, the N64 was a family purchase. Um, I purchased the PS2 uh, and onward. I mean, I've been gaming since I was basically able to walk.
I think you're the only one that actually had gamer parents.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like my dad played with me a little bit. He I mean, to his credit, my dad, for anyone listening, my dad has essentially one arm. Is basically heavily impacted from an injury that he had when he was like around 20 years old, or maybe even just 18. So his right arm is essentially has very limited motion in the fingers. So the Nintendo he could kind of play because he would use the directional pad with his left hand thumb as normal, but then the A and B button, instead of holding it and pushing it with his thumb, he basically just held his hand over it and used his forefinger to press on A and B. So especially currently, normal controllers would be out of the question. But back then he could play, and so whenever we got the Nintendo, he did try to play with me some. We had a golf game that he and I would play, and both play the first Super Mario Brothers, which I think I've mentioned in my blog. Uh, my childhood shame as a gamer is that my father beat Super Mario Brothers before I did. But he cheated because I was at school, so I wasn't able to play. He was playing it whenever I wasn't there. Either that or he told me he beat it and he actually never did. But if that's the case, he's not admitted such all these years.
So that's a similar. I mean, the fact that your dad beat Super Mario Brothers before you did. My dad did the same, but I one upped him on Super Mario Brothers 2 at least.
I
Um,
I won up my dad by finishing Super Mario Brothers with the Fire Flower. So I actually
ah,
he was small, which means that he had to get hit and then managed to beat it. Whereas
he just ran through Bowser.
whereas I managed to beat it without getting hit and was able to use the fireball to do it. So.
Speaking of the comment that's in the chat, my family's a long line of nerds. Um, Back when Dragon Quest VIII was released, my mom hadn't really played games in a long time. But whenever I told her about it and showed her a video of the game in action, she went nuts for it. She had to have it because it was classic Dragon Quest in a modern style. Like the sound effects were classic sound effects. Music was very similar to what she knew. And as far as I know, she played that game all the way through, and that kind of amazed me. And then she also got Twilight Princess for the Wii and played that all the way through, which is also astounding.
That's a solid game. I liked Twilight Princess more than a lot of people.
I like the GameCube version. I was not a fan of the Wii port.
That was the one that I played, actually. It was the Wii port. I didn't play it on GameCube for whatever reason.
Yeah,
No.
that's one I admittedly have not played. There are a lot of iconic titles that I missed, and I've mentioned this to Phil before. A big part of it, I blame World of Warcraft. You get pulled into an MMO and you play that so much that you miss a lot of other games. Not that I played nothing but I was still playing other stuff, all the time. But you still you just put time into one. I mean, it's the same thing with people who put in 1,000 hours into Skyrim. You're just naturally going to lose time of playing other things if you're putting that much time into a different game. So
Just a little correction. I lied. I played it on the Wii U.
liar.
I remember seeing you do that.
That's
This,
right.
this
That's
entire
right.
thing, our credibility is shot. You just
Done.
started off lying in the first 20 minutes.
Well, I corrected myself in the first 20 minutes too.
It's too late now. It's all ruined.
All over. Shall we start again?
Yeah, shut it off. Shut it down. Shut it down. Start over. Mulligan. So, and another thing I'll note going forward is as we theoretically continue to do this, that you'll find, whereas I had been playing World of Warcraft, Phil here is our resident professor who has I think, a near eidetic memory. So he will pull out tidbits for near every game that most people would not know on the surface level. A lot of that comes because you actually got into the fan ROM community and started getting interested in that, and so you've pulled tons of information from people who have dug into code and like
Oh yeah.
out. So this is on this fan translation or this fan hack or this fan update or fan correction. They found this in the code or that in the code. So there's tons of information that he'll have available over things that you'll just kind of like, how do you possibly know that? So, but you've also got an amazing memory because like knowing the track titles to soundtracks or every enemy in an RPG by name rather than what they look like. Those little things are like where I say I'm convinced you have some level of photographic memory.
It's possible.
Yes. I can't argue with that, having had lived with him for a few years. I would ask him questions, or I'd play a track, and I'm like, or I would hum a tune even sometimes, and I'd be like, "What is that from?" And he'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's like this level in Mega Man or something." So
Or that's this track. It's this name. It's from this obscure game that you played once 28 years ago.
mhm, pretty much.
Although I'll say another that we've talked about this before. Phil has some advantage over me, and again, I go back. I blame World of Warcraft, but there are some games that I liked as a kid where he'll mention something about it. I'm like, no, I don't really remember that. I played it once, like 20 something years ago, and he'll just kind of look at me and say, really? Played that game like 4 times? I'm like, damn you, World of Warcraft! So. Okay, well, with introductions out of the way, let's get into what will eventually be our first segment of the podcast going forward. What games have you been playing this week, Brian?
Drinking games. No. Uh, Wander Song on the
Things
Nintendo Switch, was actually released by Humble Bundle. Surprisingly, I didn't even know they had released any games. But you play as a bard who is out to save the world, because of course you're out to save the world, and you have to use your voice or music to solve different puzzles and stuff like that. None of the puzzles are particularly difficult or anything, but it's fun. It's cute. What else have I been playing? That's pretty much it. I've been so busy with other projects lately that I haven't really been playing a whole lot, sadly.
Boo, Wondersong does not have a physical release. That makes me sad.
Oh, does it not? Yeah, that didn't surprise me though, since it came from Humble Bundle.
Yeah,
I,
it's not shocking, but yeah, it always disappoints me if there's. Uh, we'll talk about it in a later segment during a specific story, but yeah, physical. I'm a physical collector, so it's whenever I see things are digital only, it bums me out. I like the things they've been doing with like strictly limited games and limited run games, that these little digital only, a lot of them are indie titles, get a shot at having a physical release. The downside to that is so many of them are being just they're just being swarmed by resellers that are buying it specifically to put it back on eBay. And I think there's ways to get around that. I think that there's probably ways to get around that will become common in the future, rather than being these little indie dev, limited run. You only get 5,000 copies worldwide in one print run, and that's the end of it. I think as digital becomes more and more of the common thing, and I think this is with probably potentially books and Blu-rays in the future too. You'll see companies basically having a window of, we're going to have this many available for physical, or we'll have a window of time available to put in physical pre-orders. And people who specifically want a physical one will have that time period, and then however many orders get put in, so long as it meets a threshold, then they'll do a print run of that amount. But that way, everyone that wants it can have a reasonable amount of time to just say, "I want one," and they can print it
right.
to that amount.
Mm,
See,
what?
RG's
Later.
RG's watching. He's saying he's
Oh,
got to go. So,
bye.
uh, but yeah, so I just think eventually it's going to become a thing where essentially physical collecting will still be an option, but I think books, movies, and video games may end up in the long term, not near, but 10, 20 years from now, it may end up being physical collection is more of a print on demand industry than just standard, and that makes me sad.
I could see that. The only problem I see with that model is not knowing when things are coming out. Like, I don't know when things are going to come out a lot of times. Books is a good example of that. Like, um, that's one of the reasons I still like going into bookstores when I actually have money, because I could. There have been a few times that I've wandered in the bookstore, didn't necessarily have in mind anything in particular that I wanted, and I'm like, oh hey, this author that I like came out with a new book, and I had no idea. Um, so I guess if you like closely follow all the things that you want, then I could see that working, but I don't know how many people do and how many people are like me that just kind of wander across a thing.
Yeah. Well, I just see, with everything physical seeming to be in decline, and I mean, even Barnes and Noble is supposedly seeing their profits are shrinking as well. I just think eventually it's going to get to that point of, you'll basically go on a website and you're going to do the same thing. You'll have to browse around there and you'll see, oh, there's someone I like has come out. And you either buy it digital or you can do a print on demand copy. Books, I think, would be more readily just print on demand as is. You don't have to do like a limited order sort of thing. I think those would just be, you can order, which I think could be cool, because I mean, think about a company like basically offering, okay, we can do all this, and for this price, we'll just send you a paperback or a hardcover of this book. But like, how much could they offer? A lot of different things where you can do a customized book. You'll pay more, but oh, I want this book in normal hardback size, but I want it leather bound with embossed cover and blah blah blah, and being able to actually have kind of a customized deal for an extra cost. I think that could be an interesting direction at some point. I don't think that'll apply to video games, unless you can have one of two covers printed on your art sleeve.
Which they kind of do now. I mean,
Yeah,
for
they do
some games, you can
reversible
reverse them.
covers.
Hmm.
Yep. So I can see that, but so anyhow, Phil,
Uh,
what have you been playing this week?
Okay. Um, Yoshi's Crafted World is something that I've gotten into recently. Um, the demo for that wasn't very impressive. they chose kind of a boring level for the demo. Everything, which was the first level of the game. Everything after that is so much better so far. Very creative aesthetic. I think the biggest downside is the soundtrack. It's kind of dull.
Really?
But the game is extremely creative. It's a lot of fun. It's not quite on the level of Yoshi's Island, but they really haven't been able to recapture that magic like at all, in my opinion. But yeah, I can probably say more the farther I get into it.
So,
Um,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say the reviews. The reason that I have not purchased that game personally is the reviews that I had seen of it all said that there's like no challenge.
it's I think the challenge is in collecting all of the flowers and things like that,
Gotcha.
more than it is difficulty in the levels.
Mm.
Um, Apart from that, I am still playing through Persona 3 on the PlayStation 2. Uh,
Taking your dog to the movies.
yeah, I do think that was adorable that I could take the dog to the movies and that I got kicked out.
I just like the screenshot you gave me. You tried to convince the manager that it's a very lifelike doll.
But they kicked you out. You promised Koromaru that you will buy him the DVD when it releases. Um, but yeah, it's a very good game. I can see exactly where they got where the systems evolved into Persona 4 and Persona 5 as I play it. It still holds up very well. My biggest issue with it is that the social link system is a bit rudimentary in that game. Not all the party members have social link interactions, which is unfortunate. And the females, if you want to max out their social links, most of them you have to be dating. It's not an option of either or. It's just you are dating them apparently.
Can you date multiple at the same
yeah.
time?
Oh yeah,
So you're a man whore.
essentially.
And
But I haven't actually maxed out any of the social links for the female characters yet. But as far as I know, that's something that kind of irks some people, where it makes it seem a little bit insincere if you're
can you
dating all of them.
can you ignore the social links with all the others and just focus on maxing your social link with the dog?
Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be an actual social link with the dog.
This is bullshit.
You can take him for walks.
What are you talking about? Dogs love everybody.
Yeah,
You don't need to build a social link. Just feed him
it's not
once.
necessary. But yeah, I'm enjoying the game a lot so far. It's kind of a slow burn, just like 4 and 5. But the plot is also very different. I can tell that it's probably about to take a turn for the very dark. There's just a lot building up, and I feel like terrible, terrible things are about to happen.
Persona game taking a turn for the dark? This is unbelievable. What?
Well, from what I understand, it is probably one of the darkest of the series. 4 and 5 are a lot lighter, a lot more lighthearted, as by comparison.
Okay.
But
Fun fact, I own that game, but I didn't realize that I was buying the PlayStation Portable version or whatever. I thought that they had re-released it on PS3, so I bought it, and then they don't refund it. So even though I can't actually play it, I own a copy.
Yay!
See, I started P3 Portable. My problem is the fact that a lot of the cutscenes were removed and kind of replaced with a visual novel style thing, where you just kind of have the character portraits and they kind of tell you what's happening. I haven't really played it that far, but the PS2 version was a lot better. They had actual cutscenes using the 3D models. It just feels a lot more complete. I might go back and play through Portable later, though.
I think that was one of the problems that I had with was it the Metal Gear Solid Collection that came out on PS3 had the PlayStation Portable game, and the cutscenes in that were also, even though it was like a ported version, they didn't like animate the cutscenes. They were still shots with dialogue bubbles, and it got kind of annoying to me.
Yeah.
Have you played anything else this week, or those your two main ones?
Those are my two main ones. I'm slowly working my way through Devil May Cry 5, which is ironic because it's not a very long game.
Did you ever finish Spider-Man?
No, I have not.
Get out.
That's one that I intend to return to after Persona.
Did you ever start? Did you start Dragon Quest when it came out, or was that the one that you were thinking about it and we said no, finish what you started?
Well, that and the Switch version is coming out toward the end of the year, and it's going to have more features. So I'm just going to get it on the Switch and ultimately play it there.
Makes sense. Okay, well, as for me, I have not been playing much. All I've played this week has been working further into Knights of the Old Republic 2 on the original Xbox. I have not actually played it before. Until this past year, I had never played the first Knights of the Old Republic. So what actually happened is I am in the camp that is not a fan of the Disney Star Wars films. Force Awakens was okay, but ultimately, the more I thought about it after seeing it twice, I was like, there's a lot of things I didn't really like, but I kind of said it was one of those that I didn't really like what they did with it in that one, but there's a lot of room for Episode 8 to explain and expand on it, and it'll kind of come together and make more sense. Episode 8 did absolutely none of that and took things further down the path of, thank you, I hate it. So like I'm not at all interested in episode 9. I'll go see it just because it's finishing it, but I just don't care. So instead of basically forever crying and griping about it on Twitter, which I will do occasionally, and if I see other people talking about it, I'll chime in on my opinion. But instead of basically focusing all my time on I hate it, it needs to change, remake episode 8. I basically just looked at it and said, you know what? There are a gajillion things from the expanded universe that I never read or never played. I haven't watched everything. I don't think I've seen all. Well, I guess I have because I saw all the Clone Wars animated series. I've seen all the movies prior to the new ones, so I guess I've seen everything. But I haven't played all the games or read all the books and everything. So I just decided that I was going to go back and I was going to go through the entire expanded universe. So I pulled up the wiki that has the expanded universe timeline. I just started with the first, the books, the short stories, some of the graphic novels, and I got up to Knights of the Old Republic and played through that, and then read half of the book titled Revan, and then got to the halfway point, stopped, and now I'm playing Knights of the Old Republic 2. I'm getting close to the last stretch of that, and then once that wraps up, then it's like 4 books, and then it'll go into the Old Republic MMO.
4 books.
Yeah, there's 4 books after Knights of the Old Republic that take place before the Old Republic MMO itself.
Okay.
I can't remember what their titles are, but they're actually slated as Star Wars: The Old Republic. They're kind of like tie-ins and lead-ins to the MMO.
Oh, okay.
So then once I get to the MMO, I'm going to actually hop in and play the MMO since it's free to play. Although I've been told it's worth subscribing the 1 month so you unlock everything. After that, you can go back to free to play mode and just continue to play through it. But I'll play through at least some of the story aspects for the different classes. And then after that, I think it'll just be able to play through or actually I'll just be able to focus on reading through a lot of books after that instead of the slowdown that are games. So once I finish up, this isn't really what I've been playing, but once I finish up that and go back to reading books, I'm going to start, or actually I guess while I'm playing Knights of the Old Republic 2, I was reading The Last Wish, the first book in the Witcher series. So once I finish Knights of the Old Republic 2 and I'm reading Star Wars books, I'm thinking I'm going to play the first Witcher game.
Skip it. I don't know. It wasn't all that great to me. It's very old school RPG, I guess, but it just I can see where they got some of the ideas for the later games in the series, but it by itself wasn't all that great.
I went back. I did the full PC experience. I installed the game and then I pulled a bunch of add-ons and installed mods.
Ah.
And so I didn't do anything that really changes the gameplay, but I did all the mods that improve the graphics. There is one that I think changes gameplay. It's a combat mod, but it was actually made by one of the original developers of the game.
Oh, that's
Basically improved the combat somehow. I can't remember the specifics of it because I basically got everything installed and then set it aside as, okay, it's ready. Once I finish Nights, I'll come to it, but I don't want to start an RPG in the middle of another RPG. So I haven't even played Final Fantasy 14 this week. That's
dude, let's not even talk about that. I'm probably gonna unsubscribe yet again because I just I can't. I don't have time right now. For one, I've just been so busy, like I said, with a bunch of other projects that gaming is on the back burner for me right now.
that's largely where I've been. I just haven't had time to actually game. I bought a bunch of DVDs on a Craigslist lot, and so I've been spending a lot of time sorting those and selling them and watching some of them because the whole point of original buying it was, hey, I want these 15 different DVDs, and then that it's kind of spiraled into, well, do you just want to buy all of it for a flat fee? And I was like, I guess so. So
Sure.
I've been watching some stuff from that while like kind of trying to put things on eBay and clear out some of the stuff that has amassed in my house over time. I've still got like a room full of stuff of like my dad's record collection. My mom has an old set of plates that we're shockingly found that are excessively expensive on eBay. So
Nice.
we're trying to slowly go through and clear out some space. They're clearing out space in the house, so I'm helping with that, which means that much of their stuff taking up space becomes stuff taking up space in my house. So.
Yeah. I don't do any of that. I'm too lazy to sell things and look at things and things. I'm sending you something. This is something we need to figure out some way to riff together or something that I ordered on Amazon. I'm gonna use it to show Andy how riffing works, I guess. Kind of, you know. And Philip, you've seen this already. to something to kind of cut his teeth on riffing, I guess you could say, because it doesn't look like it's going to be too hard. But
that's Phil actually shared the image with me. The high spirits. He's an American. She's a ghost.
Yeah, ridiculous.
So.
Plus a Nick Cage movie, which, for those who don't know, I'm not a huge fan of Nick Cage anyway, but that was actually the movie that was recommended to me to watch, Vampire's Kiss. So it just happened to be in a 2-pack with that other one.
That other one.
That other one.
All right, moving into our next segment, let's real briefly. I'd like to have a longer list in the future, but briefly, because I just grabbed a few for this one, but birthdays and anniversaries. So this past week was actually Final Fantasy VI's 25th anniversary in Japan. It was released on April 2nd, 1994.
Yeah.
And then celebrating a 10-year anniversary actually today is Chronicles of Riddick: Assault on Dark Athena, which I believe was Xbox and PC. I have to go back and look it up. I forget. I know.
Was there another Chronicles of Riddick game too? Or
Assault on Butcher Bay, I think it was.
I think that's the one.
Oh yeah.
I believe that one was Xbox exclusive, at least at release. It's supposed to be pretty good as far as Xbox exclusives go. It's supposed to be a pretty good one. And then a 5th-year anniversary for Elder Scrolls Online, released April 4th, 2014.
I still haven't played that. I heard that the class system wasn't great, so I just kind of skipped it.
Yeah, I never did either. It was one that the trailer looked very cool, but the gameplay was like, it's another MMO. There's a number of them, and I think at the time I was playing both WoW and 14 a little back and forth, so
Yeah.
I wasn't really, and I was never huge into Elder Scrolls, so it was kind of one of those that, it doesn't hold that nostalgia hook for me to get into a new one.
And I think the problem with a game like Elder Scrolls Online, I played it a little bit, but naturally, it's being an MMO, it's going to have some kind of balance where games like Oblivion, Morrowind, and Skyrim didn't really because it's a single player experience.
Them.
Yeah, and I mean, you could pretty much go almost anywhere, do almost anything in any order. However, ESO feels a little bit more structured from what I've experienced. I admittedly only played it for a little while.
It definitely is, and I think that was one of the complaints from a lot
Yeah.
of long-term players, which was like, but it's an MMO. You can't.
Yeah. So
You have to expect a different experience.
yeah, and you have to be willing to meet it in the middle.
Yeah. Well, all right. With the short anniversary segment, let's move into what would expect to be the bulk of this discussion. Gaming news.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of these we're actually going to be a little behind on. Normally this would just be stuff that's popped up in the past week, but since this is our first one, I kind of reached back a little further and said, some things that have been topics here recently. I'm going to start off a little out of order from the layout that I sent you guys because I think that first two are going to be a little longer discussion. So let's start off with the hopeful rise of cloud gaming. We've got Google Stadia and Apple Gaming have both been announced here recently. I know what I think. What do you guys think about this as far as?
Well, just touching on Google Stadia, I am highly skeptical of it, and the main reason for that is because I own a Steam Link. I'm the one.
Oh, you're the guy.
Yeah, I'm the guy. And it within the same house wasn't. There was too much lag to play a game like Celeste specifically. Where you really need to not have any lag because the reaction times in that game are super tight. So I'm really skeptical. I know that the article that you sent over said that it's going to be better for some games than for others, but um, I don't know. Is it going to be better?
Yeah, I saw some comments on Twitter that I think probably may have hit the nail on the head. Um, Google is making a gaming service for people in San Francisco.
Pretty much.
Um, I would personally expand that and say other specific cities, but I can't because it is launching in the US, Canada, UK, and Europe in 2019. In which case, I'm like, I, I think you should probably want to launch it in, Europe, Japan, Taiwan,
Places that are
places.
tinier.
But no, not tinier places that have ridiculous, like, oh, we just upgraded to 200 megabits per second, and
Yeah.
other places are going, that's cute, I guess. I mean, I've seen screenshots where people have posted their speed tests in Japan, and it's like, oh, 1.6 gigabyte download speed, 578 megabits per second upload speed, and I'm like, wow,
So
that's
Well,
basically, you download things before you even know you want to download things.
yes,
yeah, those will be the people that this is designed for, I feel.
yeah.
Um,
So like the tech bubble in the tech industry in San Francisco, they probably have some access to it, but like anybody in rural, and by rural I mean 2 miles outside of the center of a city, I just don't see it working like they say it's going to.
yeah, I'm
And
really
especially
on the fence about it. I'm going to have to see it in action, really, to make any firm judgments on it. But
on their claim of AAA games up to 4K with HDR at 60 frames per second. And
yeah,
and then they're already saying 8K resolution, 120 frames per second in the near future. I'm like, I don't like. Are you
Not
really?
on the 30 megabits per second stream, which is what they were saying that was, I believe, the minimum requirements in that article that you sent over.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
apparently they've claimed that they only used 20 megabits per second when they were first testing it, and with Assassin's Creed at when it was just called Project Stream back in 2018, and I'm like, it's a lot of big talk that I don't really expect will deliver.
hey, Toby.
Yeah,
Told you would chime in.
I'm just that and the fact that it's all digital. I mean, naturally because of streaming, it just makes me skeptical because since it is all streaming, what happens if they decide not to support a game that you've purchased any longer? Such as the case with like Scott Pilgrim versus the World. You can
Mhm.
no longer get that.
Well, and there's the thing, we don't know the business model. Like
Yeah,
we don't know if it's going to be like Netflix where you just pay a subscription fee
that's true.
and you basically just have access to it. But that could be the same thing. Look at Netflix. What's there this month is not necessarily there next month. So that can still be a factor. The other aspect of it is everything, like they're saying, it'll, just take a controller and you'll be able to play anywhere on PC, TVs, mobile devices, et cetera, through a Chrome browser. And I'm like, you mean the browser that collects abundant amounts of information, makes a profile of you beyond what you imagine from simple browsing, and is a massive resource hog just browsing the internet, but you expect it to handle multiple gigs of data at a time?
And not break.
I'm just like, how many devices are going to get fried because Chrome just basically destroys them by oh, Chrome is going to run all this stuff in the background and bog down your system, and now gaming just destroy it. Just is it going to overheat and blow up in your hands?
Well, I mean, just remember how Windows 3.1 worked. You could only have one thing running at a time.
That's right.
Yep.
Well,
Well,
Close everything, one browser, one tab, that's it.
and then in addition to that, like I was saying about Chrome, it's Google. They want all the information possible about every single person using their products because you are the product that they're selling to advertisers. Then we've got the whole, oh yeah, the controller's got a built-in microphone. Yeah,
let's
Alexa,
add more to the mix.
like Alexa and all these other things that we found out are recording mass amounts of information that you don't realize they're recording.
Right.
Oh, wait, isn't it also going to be equipped with an assist mode?
Yes, Google Assistant will help you beat games by auto pulling YouTube Let's Play videos if you get stuck at the push of a button.
Okay, yeah.
So, and then it'll be able to easily stream to YouTube, which is not a surprise. I mean, consoles do that now. But it's just, in this case, I'm uneasy about it because YouTube is already becoming a problem for creators, where essentially Google is making tons of money off everything creators and streamers are creating content wise. You're doing all the work. Google is getting all the money for it, but as the one actually creating it, you're on the razor's edge at any given moment that any single thing can change that they don't tell you about, and suddenly, floop, you lose everything. Your channel's shut down, everything's gone. You're not able to get it back, and this just furthers that aspect of Google is not only the platform hosting the video, but Google is making money from the source where you create the video from, and their video, like presenting it and showing off, what is Stadia. Their big marketing phrase is one place for gaming, and to me, I just hear that as one monopoly. Like it furthers Google's intention of YouTube will be the only place to stream games. YouTube will be the only place to watch videos. YouTube will be the only place for all this. But now, on top of that, we will be the only place for you to actually access the games to begin with. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen totally because Steam is still going to exist and Epic Store just opened. So there's all those other ways of accessing it, and clearly Twitch is going to continue to compete with it. But I really think Google is actively pursuing the same. Well, I think Google, Amazon, and a few other companies are actively pursuing a single goal of being a monopoly of the entirety of a market itself, rather than monopolizing one thing. They want to be the only source of all the things.
I mean, they have been trying to do that for a while now. They've got the phones and the phone service, which I use, and they've got the Wi-Fi services in certain areas and stuff like that. I guess it was inevitable that they were going to own all of us.
I mean, they are run by a demon overlord or some kind of robot, or a combination of the two. I just wonder who it is.
It's a demon overlord who was bested in combat but survived by becoming part robot.
Gasp.
Well, and the other thing that they're talking about, that, mark my words, this will not last. Either it's not going to go live, or as soon as it does, it'll last a week, and then they'll pull it. They're claiming that you'll be able to watch your favorite YouTube celebrities and jump right into the same game as them, or in some cases, the same save or multiplayer party. That is an absolute disaster waiting to happen.
Oh yeah, how is that? No.
Because you are not going to follow your favorite people and jump in. Trolls are going to follow the people they hate and jump in to try and ruin the experience, or try and do things that will get their channel shut down, or
I
get them
told you not to tell them my plans. Damn it.
Look, if you're going to have evil plans, we're going to expose them. Sorry.
I mean, actually, they are Google. They probably already knew. But
No, they're planning to do it themselves.
oh, okay.
Not necessarily. It's just, yeah, I could see that going very, very poorly.
It absolutely will. Like I said, it's either that will not go live, or if it does, it won't last long.
Yeah.
So, and then again, it's like everyone thinks it's great, it's amazing, it's going to be the future, but like the streaming game thing, like, stop and ask yourself why the publishers, like the EAs of the world, why do they want that so bad? Because they're really pushing for it. It's because everyone thinks, oh, if it goes all digital, then you have a lot less expenses, so games will be cheap, like on Steam. No, once there's no other option, they have no reason to offer anything discounted. And on top of that, you don't own it to begin with. So essentially, you're just paying a licensing fee to access something that costs nothing. So really, a $60 game should be cheaper digitally, just from the perspective of none of those costs. But they're not. And anytime people bring up that they are, I will hop on and go check GameStop.com versus Steam, and it's like not even a 50-50 chance. It tends to lean that the used game is a little bit cheaper than the one on Steam. And I've even had times where I look at like Best Buy and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go buy a brand new copy. Going and buying a brand new physical copy at Best Buy that day is cheaper than buying it on Steam.
Yeah.
I've run into that as well. Download for consoles too.
Mm-hmm. So it's one of those. PC digital is not inherently cheaper than physical console discs, which kind of sucks, because I mean, look at the PC side of things. There's really not much choice of buying PC physical anymore.
Mm-mm.
That's not too much of an option.
Yeah, I'm trying to think the last time I bought a physical PC game. No, I was gonna say Skyrim, but now that I think about it, it was just a box with the code inside of it, the Steam code.
The last physical game I bought was actually Witcher for $3 at a garage sale.
Nice.
The Witcher Enhanced Edition. Before that, now part of it is I'm admittedly not really much of a PC gamer, just because for me, I like to break it up. I use the PC for work. I use a PC for MMOs. So for other games, I like to go to the console and just hit the couch. And I know that a lot of people would very validly point out that, well, you could just get a gaming PC and hook it up to your TV and still play on the couch. Yes, you're correct. I could. But I don't.
I just grew up with consoles because they were, and so I kind of stuck with that because how long has the PlayStation 4 been out now? 6, 7 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And I've only got to buy the one. I mean, I guess I could get the PS4 Pro, but you don't really have to play all the games that are out there. So in reality, to keep up, it's just cheaper. You don't have
Yeah.
to keep upgrading your hardware and stuff like that to play the games that you want to play. So, I mean, I like sitting on the couch too. Don't get me wrong, but like the computer that I'm using for this and that I use for Final Fantasy 14 and any other PC games is a 5-year-old gaming laptop. You know, at the time it was really nice, but now it's not. And to replace it, I would be looking at, you know, $1,600 to $2,000, where, you know, I think I paid what, $400 or $500 for my PS4.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I mean, if you're going to be if you're going to go the PC route, you have to go with a tower that has the modular, you know, components that you can swap out, and then you can keep up with it, and you can arguably upgrade, like, say every time a new console comes out, or even a half-step console comes out, you can
mhm.
upgrade just one thing in the computer for less than the cost of the console, and you can stay pretty much 2 steps ahead of the consoles at any given time. So that's definitely the way to go if you want to have the top of the line and the best options. And PC is always going to have more options than that. I'm just fine with not delving into it. So now,
Same.
if we do hit a point where there's no more consoles, like if PS5 and Xbox, whatever they call it, are the last console generation, and then PS6 and Xbox, whatever they would have called it, turn out to be like digital only consoles, then that's the
Mhm.
point where I'm out. I will probably just go PC, unless PlayStation continue to offer digitally only exclusives that were really great. Then I'd probably consider that, but mm, I'd probably be leaning at that point of either I will go with a PC, with a gaming PC hooked up to the television, or I will just abandon new gaming altogether and finally focus on my backlog.
Your
Yeah.
giant backlog like we all have.
Shut up.
I said we all have.
that's the one of the jokes I've made before of, yeah, you got these PC gamers at their Steam sales and they end up with 1,000 games in their backlog that they've never touched. And then
Yeah.
let me introduce you to my game room with the 1,300 games that I've purchased for various consoles and have yet to touch.
Right, right.
I'm, I am just as bad. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got 147 in my Steam library, and now some of them I haven't touched because they don't work. Looking at you, Star Wars X-Wing Alliance, but
okay,
yeah.
some of the older games.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You know, that would actually, with, we're going way off topic at this point, but
Oh
uh,
yeah.
Did we expect anything different?
with Disney having resurrected LucasArts, and actually looking like they're going back into games, that would be kind of interesting for them to go back through some of their old catalogs, especially with Star Wars games, and kind of do a remake of them or just upgrade them to actually play smoother on current systems.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, sorry, caveat or the thought just hit me. The reason that I can't play X-Wing Alliance is it requires a joystick.
Oh,
Yeah, it's you can't play it with keyboard and mouse. It's you have to have a joystick for that game, which I did not remember.
gotcha.
Weird.
Yeah.
Well, on the topic of streaming games, ironically enough, I actually have less of a rankle for Apple Arcade. It's the same kind of thing as Stadia. It's going to be a game subscription for iOS. It sounds like it's going to be Netflix like, where you just pay a regular fee, and so all the games that are involved in it are 100% exclusive to Apple. You get the subscription that allows you to install games from the App Store, and then you just play them off your device. Um, and not only are they going to curate the games, but they're going to be contributing to development costs. Though the article I read didn't really say how. And they're launching in 150 countries this year, but we don't know the price yet. The fact that it's still an Apple system, so they're going to basically be mobile games. And there's the big, oh, if you play mobile games, you're not a real gamer. I'm of the side of, look, it's really, if that's your main hobby, that like when you get home and you're taken care of what you've got to take care of, and then after that you like to kick back on the couch, open up a tablet or phone and play games for the evening, then you're a gamer. You just prefer to focus on mobile games, which I think is different than the person who, oh yeah, I play games every time I'm at the doctor's office or waiting for my oil to get changed. I open the phone and play a game, but outside of that, I never touch them. Okay, that's a time wasting. That's not really treating gaming as a hobby. Um, but there are people out there, I think, that probably are, they don't buy consoles, they don't play on PC, but the primary spending of their free time is playing games on mobile. And so I think that like kind of what Apple's doing is kind of concentrate into what they're already focused on. I mean, phones are clearly their bread and butter, even more so than computers at this point, I think.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
So to me, that's kind of an interesting thing, and they've already given more information. It is a subscription service. You will basically just have access to all these games. I'm interested to see more about the whole thing that they're going to help contribute to the development costs. Because it's, you think of it as a step stool. Indie games could definitely do well with something like that, and getting known on the App Store with iOS, and then stepping up to other things, and eventually building into studios that do full blown, console and PC games.
I would be scared of exclusivity contracts with something like that, just because of the way those types of things work. But you never
I,
know.
I would imagine it would be an exclusivity contract for the game in question, not for the developer or their studio itself.
I would hope so.
Oh yeah. So
So,
like Final Fantasy 16 will be exclusive to Apple.
God,
available
don't
on
don't even say that. That is not cool, man.
available only on the iPhone.
Ugh.
So
So, I mean, there are people who think that the way phones are going, that we're eventually just going to basically, our phones will be our gaming system. We'll just get home, dock the phone like you do the Switch, and you'll just play games off that because you know
I'm- Go ahead.
the argument's sound. I mean, we walk around with a phone in our pocket that trumps anything that was a PC just 15 years ago.
yeah.
I remember there was I don't know if it was an ad or an article or something like that. There was a company that was actually comparing their phone to a Switch.
I saw
So,
that, and
yeah.
yeah, people
Was
kind
it
of laughed
was
them
it
out.
Huawei or whatever? Was that who it was? I don't
Yeah, I
remember.
think so. I think so.
But
So
we've seen what happens when you make a phone that's a game console. Did not go so well.
Yeah, it gets watered down Game Boy Advance ports
Right.
and then forgotten.
That's right. Well, not
Game
forgotten. We wish we had forgotten it.
all right, so what do you guys want to talk about next? Do you want to talk about games, difficult games needing an easy mode, GameStop, or crunch in video games in the industry?
I like crunchy things. Let's go there.
You want to talk about the crunch?
I do.
Captain Crunch or Crunch Berries?
Oops, all berries.
That's
that doesn't have the word crunch.
It's still Captain Crunch brand. It counts.
Yeah,
it's
well,
just unacceptable that game studios will work, and as the deadline approaches, they force their employees to live off Captain Crunch. It tears up their mouths.
Terrible.
yeah.
Not even that good, really.
It's really not. Everyone just wants it for the Crunch Berries.
That's right.
I initially had linked the lengthy article that Jason Schreier at Kotaku, of all places, people rag on Kotaku, but this one is actually really well done.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
So it's a long read about the development cycle of Anthem, and it brings up some questions about crunch. Brian sent another article just about crunch in general. I'm not really. I wasn't that interested in Anthem to begin with. Reading the whole thing about its troubled development is interesting, um, but it kind of starts to narrow down into the notion of the current team at BioWare kind of had a problem of just believing that BioWare magic would happen, and even though there's all these problems, that by the end of everything, it's all going to work itself out, and we'll have a great game. And that stance ends up apparently with Dragon Age Origins, the original Mass Effect trilogy, and Dragon Age Inquisition. It winds up leading to tremendous crunch times where basically everyone's working insane hours, and it's led to a discussion or a question of, does the crunch needs to be done away with? They need to get rid of crunch. Developers need to unionize to stop these things from happening, and onward and onward.
I think. Go ahead.
As I say, I don't really know enough about game development to say that I'm knowledgeable enough to say, oh, this is what I think should happen. But there are definitely some things that were commented on from devs that I'm just kind of like, that ain't right.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that there are a few arguments to be made against crunch, and if there are to be made for it, then I'd be more than willing to listen to them. But not only are people working ridiculously long hours, not being able to spend time with their family, in some cases not getting paid for all the extra hours that they're putting in, but it affects the quality of the game itself. I think that I can't say this with certainty, not working in the game industry myself, but when people are working long hours like that and stuff like that, mistakes are going to happen, and more mistakes are probably more games are coming out with probably bugs and mistakes and stuff like that. I'm willing to bet because of those, 100-hour work weeks, 60-hour work weeks that are happening during the crunch.
So so to me, 60-hour work weeks would not be that much of a, if all the things had come out saying, oh yeah, during crunch we have to work 60-hour work weeks, to me that'd be like, that doesn't seem like that big a deal, because that is not a game industry thing. You'll see that in almost every major company whenever essentially crunch happens every 3 months. At the end of the quarter, everyone's putting in extra hours to try and make those quarterly numbers. 60 hours, if you say we had to work 60 hours a week for 3 weeks to get a project that's been lasting for 4 years finished up, that's not that big a deal. When you start talking about 100-hour work weeks, and
months at a time.
yeah, as I say, I don't believe that the crunch is the last 3 weeks. I believe it is much longer than that. Yeah, that's definitely a problem. And even 60-hour weeks, if it's like months at a time, that's really pushing a lot. The big thing that it raises the question for me is, man, what happened to the old days where we gushed and worshipped like Blizzard, who would come out and be like, okay, this game's going to release on November 12th, 2019. And then in October, they'd come out and say, hey, it's not ready. We're going to push it back to January 2020. And then if it gets to January, if they need to, they'll push it out to March 2020, because back in the day, even though everyone complained about every delay that happened, at the same time, there was some level of respect when Blizzard used to come out and just be like, it's going to be ready when it's ready. And until it's polished and ready, we're not releasing it.
Yeah. Rather than dropping a game that's not quite ready and releasing a 1.5 gig day one patch.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, to some extent, I know that some of these patches are huge because it's basically, especially with consoles, you've got the whole thing of we release the game we released the game November 12th, but that game is actually the October or August, September, October, August, somewhere in that range build, because it has to go off to be printed and actually put onto discs.
Yeah.
So you've actually got 2 or 3 months of development time that happens from send it for disc printing to actual release day where they're doing extra stuff. So I understand how some of the patches get big just from doing that, but I don't know. It just seems like the crunch thing could be alleviated some if there was a more acceptable approach of, it ain't ready, we're going to delay it. And I know that Anthem in particular, again, EA is the publisher, and they laid down the edict of it must ship before end of fiscal year. And EA in particular, I mean, everyone loves to trash on EA, but they've earned it. Hey, we've made the most profitable year we've had in our company's existence. Let's lay off 800 people.
Right. Well,
I thought it was 300.
Now, however many
Oh.
it was.
Yeah.
there's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had something and it totally left me. Guys, talk until I can remember what it was.
Butterfly.
Nope, that wasn't it.
Explosions.
Explosion!
Just a few. Darn. Anyway, yeah, I feel like that having hard release dates to some degree can be a good thing because, uh, like you said, people get really frustrated with, the delays, and also you have to earn what Blizzard has, where they can push out dates and stuff like that. You have to earn
Right.
that trust that they are going to come out with something good,
Well,
rather than.
I think after Mass Effect Trilogy and Dragon Age Origins,
Mhm.
BioWare definitely had that.
Yeah.
I don't think EA needed to put the Dragon Age 2, you've got 1 year, it must be published. I
Mhm.
don't think that they, especially after Inquisition, I don't think that they needed to rush Andromeda, and I don't think they really needed to rush Anthem, aside from the fact that apparently Anthem had been in the works for so long that you've been bleeding money for 5 years.
Right.
You still have nothing to show whatsoever. But I think deadlines and milestones definitely keep some motivation of we've got to get something done by this point instead of just forever being an ephemeral, we'll talk about it and this sounds cool and maybe we could do this. But yeah, I definitely think that there should be a little bit more acceptability of dates. This is our target release date, but it could change.
Yeah, I think that there needs to be. I agree. I think that there needs to be more comfort in the developers and the people that are actually doing the grunt work, if you will, being able to push back to management and say, look, this isn't ready. It's not going to be ready by that date. We've put in the time. We've done the best we can. But going back to that example of Anthem, uh, if that article is in any way accurate, a lot of people knew that it wasn't up to the standard that it should have been when it was about to release. And
Yeah.
there's
Well, and on top of that, I mean, BioWare not so much, but EA has so much money that again, let's make the comparison to Blizzard. Blizzard was working on that this big project that they were referring to as Project Titan. And at the
Mhm.
time, it was expected to be an MMO, a big FPS MMO, that I think they said elements of it eventually spun off to become Overwatch. But they worked on Project Titan for years, and they were talking about it, and they were building it up, and they were talking about being excited of getting to a point where they're ready to show stuff off. And when they got closer and closer to that date, they realized, man, this just isn't going to come together into what we hoped it would be, and it's definitely not going to be the quality that we want it to be. And they scrapped the whole project. And it's almost like, look, EA, you've got the money to just say, okay, the last 5 years on Anthem, it ain't going to work out. It's not going to be what we hope it's going to be. If it's the call to make, scrap a project. Assets can still go to other projects down the road, or it can spin into something new later on. But I think these companies, we're getting into all the money isn't enough money.
right.
And
Yeah, the sad part about it is if they were to do what you're saying and scrap the project, they would probably scrap the team too.
yeah, that's, yeah. I mean, that's again, it's kind of funny because I think Blizzard was owned. I mean, everyone basically gives Activision as much crap as EA, and I think Blizzard was already they're already Blizzard Activision when the decision was made to scrap Titan and
Hmm.
just let it. That's just what it's going to be. It's just how it has to happen.
Right.
So that's kind of surprising that would have happened in that case and in that regard. So, but I'll tell you the thing that really pissed me off about these articles in general
Hmm.
was what you mentioned about these hours not being paid. Like one of them said the time clock can only record 40 hours.
Right.
That's some BS. If you're having people work 60 hours of overtime in a week, they should be getting that time and a half pay.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Or at the very least, like the company I work for, we've got a salaried position, which means that if you work 30 hours this week, you still get paid your 40. If you work 50 hours this week, you still get paid your 40. But they've got another thing of salaried with overtime,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't get time and a half because you're still a salaried employee. You're being paid higher, so you're expected to do what needs to be done. But salaried with overtime gets half pay. So anything over 40 hours, you're still getting half of what your normal pay would be. So it still kind of sucks that, man, I'm not even getting paid what I normally do. But the notion is you're not being paid as an hourly employee. You get paid more, and you do have certain benefits for being salaried.
Right.
Yeah.
So at the very least, 100 hours, I'm like, either
Yeah.
that either that or do something like, look, you're a salaried employee, you get paid 40 hours. If you have to work 60 hours, you still get paid 40. But anything over 60, start paying time and a half, or there
Right.
should be some sort of in between there. And I know that the argument is, well, that's why they need to unionize. I'm not going to go into that debate because I don't know enough about it, but I have seen valid arguments against unions not being the magical cure all that people think they are.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get into that, but
Yeah.
I'm not touching that one.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's another thing of the concept of the union is great. The implementation of unions are easily corrupted.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. A big part, big part of the problem rather, with the industry as a whole, and what you're talking about, where people are working ridiculous amounts of overtime, not getting paid, is a lot of these people are either contractors,
Hmm.
and they've got a contract that says that this can happen, or there are a lot of people out there that know how difficult it is to get a job in the industry, and they're either new, so they're just really happy to have actually gotten one of those jobs, or like I said, they know how difficult it is to get in, and if you lose a job, trying to find another job can be difficult, no matter what the reason is behind you losing that job. If somebody sees on your resume that you've essentially been fired from, working for, I'm just going to use Blizzard as an example, not a good example, but then you're probably not going to get hired somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're doing what they feel like that they have to do to uh, keep doing what they thought they wanted to do, or what they do want to do. It may be what they want to do, but they just don't want to work ridiculous numbers of hours.
Right.
So
Well,
that's,
and then there's also the aspect of there is some hypocrisy involved too. Like
Mhm.
a YouTuber that had watched recently was talking about I think it was at GDC that Tim Schafer apparently got up and did something about how the crunch is unacceptable and people need to unionize, blah 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 blah. And the YouTuber pointed out, Tim Schafer, you own your own studio and you guys aren't unionized.
right.
So it's like some of these people are in a position that they could actually be the change they want to see. And
And
I
they're
don't
not doing it.
yeah, I don't understand why you're not doing it. Like lead by example, just like be the example that everyone could look to and be like, man, that's the company we should go be trying to work for.
Right.
And then, that let that start to put pressure on the industry.
Yeah, no, totally. That makes perfect sense. But nobody's willing to do it. I wonder how much of that is like kind of the same mindset as hazing. This is how it was done for me.
Yeah,
So everybody else kind of has to go through, and what's the term I'm looking for? You have to, take your licks, or
yeah. But the response question is, yeah, that's how it was for you. But did you like it, or did you wish
right,
it would be better?
right.
Phil, why are you talking so much?
Yeah, keep it down,
I don't
bud.
know, I'm just listening to the conversation. I don't have anything to contribute that you guys haven't already said.
I'm keeping an eye on the clock. I know that I'm trying to keep us from totally running out of time. So I think actually we've gone over our longest topics. I think the next few. Well, I think we've got a couple that'll be short, and then one that's going to be long. So let's hit the short ones real quick. Um, so GameStop is struggling still.
Yeah.
Um, Did either of you read that article that I had sent over?
I did.
So
Over it.
the thing that gets me the most is, I mean, obviously, digital games will continue to hurt GameStop. That's going to be a
Oh
fact.
yeah.
But what threw me is there was a quote in that article that says sales of $3.1 billion in the holiday quarter were also below analyst estimates.
Yeah, that's a
I'm
lot of money.
I'm kind of in the category of, is GameStop about to start suffering Atari's fate?
Yeah.
Because as historians have actually pointed out, the year that really was the downfall, that Atari actually basically tanked, what actually killed them, they reported record profits, just not record profits to which they expected.
Yeah.
So investors basically bailed, they just jumped ship. They fled like, oh God, you made $3 billion in sales instead of the $4 billion in sales we expected. They're more concerned about the $999,000 they didn't get instead of the $3 billion they did. And I'm wondering if we're going in that direction where, look, GameStop's not doing as bad as they could be, but they're just not meeting expectations of what investors are looking for. I don't really know if it said how much they're losing, and 3.1 billion in sales, that's revenue, that's not profit, but it's just one of those things. I'm wondering how much of it is investors want all the money instead of lots of money, and how much of it is it's really a lot of people hate GameStop, so they really kind of want GameStop to fail.
Yeah.
I don't want it to fail. I don't hate them particularly. Sure, some of their business practices are a little weird, but that's, you know, or some of their business practices are annoying and kind of terrible, but that's just, I guess, nature of the beast with that kind of business anymore.
To some extent, they have had some business practices that are downright scummy, and that is just executive management just being dumb, deaf, and blind.
Right.
Um, I think that, and I've worked in retail, so I basically worked in GameStop but books. So I've been kind of in that area. We weren't handling used books, so there was that. But like people complain all the time about, oh, you can take in a brand new game that came out last week and you'll get 10 cents for it, and then they'll sell it for $5 less than the new price. I'm like, okay, first off, no, that's completely a lie. Uh, and every time people bring this up, that they give absolutely nothing for used games, I'm like, give me titles. Like, let's actually look it up, because you can go to GameStop.com, click on trade values, put in a title, and it will tell you how much you get cash, store credit, or if you've got the pro membership, cash and store credit at that level.
Mhm.
And if it's a brand new game, you're still getting like $35-$40, and people are like, well, it costs 60. Yeah, I know, they're a business, they have to actually make money.
Right. They got to keep the lights on.
Yeah, and a lot of times you're going to look at stuff as, well, why is it more expensive at GameStop than it is online? I can buy it on eBay for cheaper. Yes, someone selling it on eBay is just a dude in their house. They're not paying rent for multiple stores, electricity for multiple stores.
Mhm.
Um, People think that when GameStop shuts down, it's just going to be, everything will still be fine. But all the complaints you have at GameStop are just going to now transfer over to the same complaints you're going to have at Best Buy, at Amazon, at Walmart, or at any sort of small company.
Right.
Um, Here in the Metroplex and DFW, we've got a company called Game Exchange, and one of their big things is, they like to promote, we give more store credit than GameStop. I
Mhm.
think all they do is they look at what GameStop offers, and they basically have their system set up to do 20% higher or whatever.
Mhm.
If GameStop's not there, then what are they supposed to be? Like, what's the incentive to be better than GameStop? Like, GameStop thrives off of volume.
Right.
Game Exchange thrives off a larger backlog category. Like, they go back into retro games.
Mhm.
Um, I'm kind of surprised GameStop's not shifted to focus on that more than they have. Like, if GameStop were really doing, a big push, then hey, why would you not be focusing on, we carry Xbox games that are backwards compatible on Xbox One?
Right.
Yeah.
And it, it's weird to me that they take in retro games, like they take in NES or SNES games, and the stores are supposed to just ship them back to the warehouse, and then you can buy them on GameStop.com. It's like you're kind of cutting the legs out from under you. If you would let the stores actually carry retro titles, then every store becomes a treasure hunt. You know,
Right.
there's a reason to go into the store.
Yeah.
So
I
uh,
don't, the only logic I can think of behind that particular thing is just that they take up more, the shelf space that they could be using for the $60 titles versus the however much you're going to pay for the retro games.
yeah, that's definitely a factor. But you could also shift it to, I mean, a company like that could still do the, okay, if there's a value threshold below this much, ship it back to the warehouse. If it's a value threshold above this much, keep it in the store.
Yeah.
Um, or certain titles. I mean, obviously, you should keep some copies of Mario 1 through 3, Legend of Zelda, for anything on Super Nintendo and NES that has Zelda or Mario. Keep a few of those in the store. If you get more, send them back to the warehouse.
Yeah. So they
Because
can
those
distribute.
sell quick. People just see them and it's a nostalgia buy. They'll buy those just as an impulse a lot of times.
Right.
And I have seen a few stores starting to keep a few retro games on. They keep them like in a little glass display case behind the counter.
Nice.
But it just seems like that's an area as digital sales, because digital sales are eating into your $60 disc games.
Hmm.
It seems like you need to pivot back over to selling retro stuff. And that combined with they're selling more stuff with their Think Geek ownership now, statues, figures.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's probably the only thing GameStop can do to fend off the inevitable continued decline from that digital sales are going to cause.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely sounds like it would be a good plan. Now, tell that to them.
The
See
other
if they listen.
the other thing I think that they should probably do is, and I don't understand why more companies are so terrified of this. I guess it goes back again because investors don't like it, so they bail. But I think like GameStop should probably close stores. They don't need, you don't need 5 stores within a 20-mile radius or 10 or 5-mile radius.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of them are kind of clustered close together, and
Well,
it
yeah, like
seems kind of pointless.
in Arlington, you've got one on Collins, or no, you've got one on Cooper outside next to a Target, and then across the street you've got one inside the big mall, and then a 5-minute drive over to basically 2 streets down the highway or 2 exits down the highway. There's another store there. Uh, there's a 10-minute drive up to another one. Uh, if you go so from that mall, if you go 2 exits down to the east, there's basically a store northeast of there, and then there's 2 exits down to the west. There's 2 stores, and then there's another one up north. There's so many clustered close to each other that that's where I'm kind of like, you've got way too many stores for the necessity. And then you may just have to come back and say, okay, we're going to have to shrink back and say we're not going to make as much money this year, but we're having to reshift our focus of what our business is going to be.
Yeah.
Like every company's basically, if you're not continuously making more money than the previous year, you're failing. And I
Right.
think I think you hit a point where that's a wrong mentality to take. You do have to eventually hit a point of the market's changing and it's not going to continue to increase for what we do. We need to shift what our business is going to be and make less money but still profitable.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
It's one of those things where, if I don't know if it's possible where if investors start bailing, if there's a way for you to go from publicly traded down to going back to being a private company, but that would probably save a lot of companies if they could do something like that, where you just eventually get to the point of, yeah, we're not going to be big enough to be a stock traded company anymore. We have to go back to being a smaller company.
Yeah.
That
Possible,
involves,
yes. Likely, no.
I think that involves like actual government involvement and restructuring, doesn't it?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Well, That's really all I wanted to go over with GameStop. I think GameStop's still a better store than a lot of people give it credit for. I think that it, especially with the retro and the collectors market, people dismiss GameStop and a lot of other stores too quickly. Whereas there's still valid reason to go in there. Their sales, the buy two get one free or buy three get one free. Their membership program is still saves you money if you go in there regularly enough.
Right.
I have not gone into a GameStop very often in the last probably year and a half to 2 years. But I'm about to be hitting that point where there's a lot of PS4 games that are hitting price points that I'd be interested in, and there's Switch games that I'd be interested in buying used. So they'll start becoming actually useful again. They're
Right.
also the sales being low this last quarter is we're getting near the end of a console cycle. So
Yeah, people are saving up.
2020 is probably going to be the next console cycle's beginning. So PS5 and Xbox, whatever they call it, are going to be another big
Shinty
push.
6.
What?
Shinty 6.
Yeah.
The Xbox Shinty 6.
This is now official.
That's right. You heard it here first.
Okay, well then let's start our last big topic. We got really 30 minutes before we were planning on stopping, but if we go a little over, that's fine.
That's right.
And this may actually be a shorter discussion than I expect. We may all be in agreement on it. So there's the big debate right now of do games like Sekiro and the Dark Souls and basically From Software titles are the ones in the focus right now. Do they need an easy mode?
So I feel like there's kind of a mix up in the narrative between easy mode and accessibility. Because accessibility, I mean, should logically refer to things like a mode for people who are possibly colorblind, subtitles enabled by default for people who are deaf, um, remappable buttons for people who have some difficulty with the controllers. Those are accessibility options, and that I totally understand. Um, Easy mode is a different thing altogether, in my opinion.
Hmm. It
I
it
mean, just because a game is hard, and I mean, I haven't played the games myself simply because I already know that they're not my kind of game. But just because a game is hard doesn't necessarily make it inaccessible.
right. Uh, I agree. I don't think there needs to be an easy mode for it. If I haven't played any of the games just because I've heard all the rumors and stuff, and I'll be the first to admit I'm not as hardcore as people want to think I am. Uh, I'm just not going to play them. And there's nothing wrong with that. Um, would it bring up sales? Probably marginally,
Yeah,
but I don't think it would be enough for them to, because there are people out there that want that kind of challenge that we don't get as much anymore. There's way I'll admit or I'll agree. There's way too much hand holding anymore in a lot of the games that are out there.
oh
Um,
yeah,
one of the games that came out, in the last few years that didn't have the hand holding and heard a little bit of complaint about it initially was Breath of the Wild. It didn't hold your hand. It kind of threw back to the days of the original NES Zelda in that way. Um, but I found that refreshing, actually, that it didn't walk you through everything and hold your hand. There were a couple kind of ways that it did, but it not nearly as bad as some of the other games that I've played in recent years.
yeah. That one was more of, I mean, the beginning area was kind of a tutorial,
Right,
but everything beyond that was kind of suggestions based on things you found,
hmm,
like things that sort of led you in the right direction. You didn't necessarily have to go there,
right,
but there were hints,
right,
and that makes sense. It kind of, to me, something like that gives the player a little bit more, I don't know, incentive to explore. And I feel like ultimately it'd be more satisfying to make those discoveries more on your own and to overcome a difficult challenge rather than just having the game hold your hand and say, "Yay, you did the thing, you win."
right. Which is, one of the arguments that I've heard about the From Software games is that one of the reasons that people like them is that it doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't tell you how to beat the boss. It doesn't tell you how to, how to do anything. Basically, I think it gives you a small tutorial maybe at the beginning. The only game that I played in the series was God, I want to say Demon Souls. It was so long ago, and it wasn't for me. But I remember it didn't really give you much to go on. It's like, there you go. And that's something that especially people that played games back in the day on NES, that's one of the reasons they really enjoy the game. It's because they're not getting handheld anymore. So,
Now, and I've seen some people say that adding an easy mode to something like Sekiro would kind of disrupt the balance um, because the mechanics were sort of finely tuned for that difficulty.
mhm,
Um, I mean, a game could be made, with slightly altered mechanics for an easy mode, and it wouldn't necessarily, disrupt the normal difficulty if you happen to be playing in that.
mhm,
But I do kind of see where some people are coming from with that. Um, an example that I was thinking about earlier, in fact, was Mega Man 2 for the
mhm,
NES. Um, Whenever it was released in the US, it had a normal and a difficult mode. Difficult happens to be the default difficulty. It's the original Japanese game with no alteration.
mhm,
The normal mode is actually technically an easy mode. And if you compare the two, there's really no balance in the normal mode.
mhm,
Bosses take far more damage from just about everything. There's
mhm,
no recommended boss order because so many weapons are so versatile in that mode.
mhm.
It kind of disrupts the balance.
Right.
Um, Whereas the rest of the series didn't have that. You just, it was all just one difficulty across the board. So I can kind of see where people might be concerned about balancing issues. But I mean, a developer could theoretically work that out, in production if they chose to.
But is it really worth it, especially in games like this where they've already got a pretty good audience base?
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I mean, the people who buy a From Software game, the people who are actually dedicated fans know what they're getting into, and that's why they get them.
right.
And that's that's one of the reasons the creator has actually said why they design them the way they do is for you to actually face that challenge and you know learn from your mistakes and eventually have that sensation of finally beating the thing that gave you such trouble before.
Yeah,
Uh, and people who actually do actually put in the time and learn the games, learn the mechanics, and overcome it. That's really what they describe as playing at the beginning versus once you're at the end and you figured out how to play better. Like you're a night and day different player between the two.
yeah,
And so I think there's an aspect that's to me the biggest aspect is the creator has said they create this game the way they do for a reason.
Mhm,
yeah,
And to come out and say, well, that's you need to make a different version so I can play it outside. Why is it this argument only comes up over these difficult games? Like none of these articles were written back in the day saying Journey needs to have a hardcore mode.
yeah,
Journey's not designed to be a hardcore fighting that's not the point. That's not the design of that game. When people said Gone Home isn't really a game because there's nothing in it. There's no puzzles. There's no fail state. There's no anything going on as far as that goes. There should be some sort of conflict, combat, or puzzle solving. They were told, no, that's not the developer's vision, so it doesn't need to be in this. You need to shut up.
right.
yeah,
Why does it only go one way? Why is it only this is hard, it should be easier? And the argument of, oh well, we're just talking, we just want it to be more accessible for people. No, there's a quadriplegic gamer that's working through Sekiro.
yeah.
Good on you, man.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I know. I mad respect for that.
there's there's the Street Fighter V. There's a guy that plays blind. He has competed in tournaments. He has learned to play based off sound. So there's a lot of people who are like, they're back to Phil's point. Easy mode is not accessibility. Easy mode is easy mode. Give me remappable controls. Give me things that let me see what I'm looking at better. Give me colorblind modes. Give me all these different things that let me basically be capable of playing the game as it's designed. Easy mode is something entirely different. Now, on the flip side, I suggested on Twitter a solution to all this.
Get good?
No. Get good is the default.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's the default suggestion.
Approach of how to tackle this. But instead of an easy mode, they could make it where there's ways that, each time you attack, you do more damage than you normally would. So basically a stronger player mode or a player invincibility mode. They could add all those as $10 DLCs.
There you go.
Normally people hate DLCs. I hate story content DLCs. But if you want to go back and look at old games from the Nintendo era and say, what kind of cheat codes were available on the Game Shark and the Game Genies, and you release those cheats as DLCs, I'm perfectly fine with it.
Yeah, I do remember seeing that tweet actually, because you had to buy the Game Genie or the Game Shark. So
Exactly. You had to, and not only that, you had to buy multiple ones because sitting in the other room, I've got an N64 Game Shark right now. I've got the 2.0 and the 2.1 and the 2.2 and the 3.0 and the 3.1 and the 3.2 because each release added new codes and new games that actually functioned with it.
Right.
So you had to keep rebuying the dang thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm like, if that's really the way they want to go, then instead of doing this little microtransaction and adding story content and DLCs, why not make old cheat codes into DLC content? And then if you really want to, then you can pay the $10 and you can go play a cheat version of the game.
Yeah. No, I mean that makes sense for sure. As a business model, but I don't know.
But before I forget my comment,
Go.
But even with the concept of cheat modes being released as DLC, the developer is not obligated to do so.
Yeah.
The
Agreed.
developer should be able to create the game as they want to create it. And on some level, it's refreshing to see a developer look at something and say, "Man, yeah, we could make more money if we did this and sold it, but we'd basically be compromising our vision, and we would rather be true to our design and true to our vision instead of just going for the almighty dollar." That should be kind of refreshing. That should be sort of celebrated in a way, shouldn't it?
I think so. I definitely agree. I don't feel like a lot of developers are doing that much anymore. So yeah, definitely props to From Software for doing their thing the way that they want to do it.
You mentioned Celeste earlier. That's been a one that's been put out as a comparison because apparently Celeste has like an invincibility mode that you can play through. And so people have said, well, that it didn't change Celeste, and I'm like, okay, so again, I'm perfectly fine if a developer chooses to put it in.
Yeah.
But they're under no obligation to do so.
Yeah.
And people are like, it's just because you add that in, it doesn't change the game. First off, yes, it does. It's like someone had made a comment on Twitter about it's perfectly valid to play tag or hide and seek. They're different games, and I'm like, yes, they are different games. They are not changing the rules of hide and seek. If I don't want to play hide and seek, then yes, I will go play tag. If I don't want to play Sekiro because it is hard as hell, then I will go play something else. There are a hojillion games out there to choose from.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't have to play every single one of them. And just because it's currently the hot thing, you don't have to play that one either.
Right.
Like I don't play shooters generally because I just don't care for them. I'm not going to ask for shooters or here, a good example. I don't like Call of Duty because I don't like first-person shooters. I don't like first-person view in general, so I don't really care about Call of Duty. But I enjoy games like Metal Gear Solid or The Division where any shooting is third-person mode. I'm not demanding that Call of Duty have a third-person mode.
Yeah.
Right.
I just play shooters that have a third-person mode instead.
Right.
I'm not going to play Sekiro and the Souls games if I find them too hard. I'm not going to demand that they be changed. I'm just going to go play other games instead.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I'm not playing Sekiro as much as I kind of like the idea and the concept.
I'm
It's just
I'm
not gonna happen for me, and I'm okay with that.
I'm tempted to because it's a ninja game.
Right? I know.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Have you seen that the guy that like flies out of nowhere? That I'll have to find a video and send it to you at a
yeah,
later time.
I haven't really watched much of anything of it. I just know samurai and ninja stuff is a big interest for me, and I would probably like it. Although for me, looking at the two, I was like, if you told me choose one, I'm leaning towards Ghost of Tsushima later on. I think that looks fantastic,
Yeah,
especially whenever they said that doesn't matter where you are, you will be able to play the game in Japanese with English subtitles, and you will be able to turn the game into where it plays in black and white if you wish.
nice.
So I was like, okay, so you can actually they want it to actually feel like a Kurosawa film made into
Yeah,
game. So I was like, okay, that's just cool. I like that. I definitely want to check it out. But at some point, I might give Sekiro a try. I've never really. I played a little bit of Demon Souls back in the day, and same thing. I realized, it's really not for me, or at least it wasn't for me at the time. I wasn't in the mood, or it wasn't in my taste at that time.
right.
Um, I'd probably I'd probably go back and give them a try at some point. Sekiro is the first one that makes me really want to give it a shot. And I have Bloodborne. I haven't tried it yet either. So
I heard it's not as bad as some of the other games in the series. But
I also was some people that have played it said it does something that none of the others do is you can actually go talk to a guy and endlessly train. So you can actually practice endlessly without any consequences. So you don't have to go and die over and over. You can actually train. I want to practice on parry, or I want to practice
I was
dodges.
gonna say, yeah, I can learn how to block.
Yeah. So that's definitely looks interesting. And apparently, like this, it's a lot of people who actually play it say the game does teach you. It does train you, like as you go, and you figure out how to piece all these together, and you're supposed to try different things. But yeah, I've seen people say it's not as bad as some of the other Souls games, and as far as it being just totally punishing.
right.
So. So our last thing I was going to touch on, it's not really a story for discussion so much, but well, I guess first let's touch on, because this might be, I think, Brian, this might be a bigger one for you, but I could be misremembering. Borderlands 3 was announced.
Hmm.
I forget, were you a Borderlands fan?
I played through the first one and I played a part of the second one. I didn't play the pre-sequel or whatever it was called. Actually, I probably own it. Yeah, it is called the pre-sequel. I
Mm-hmm.
own it on Steam. I'm looking at it right now. So yeah, I was a fan of the first one and the second one was fun. It gets old after a while. It's kind of like Diablo in a way that it's except for it's first person run and gun looter instead of a dungeon crawler.
Mm-hmm.
It gets old after a while. It's just like, all right, shiny new guns is fun, but meh. But yeah, I saw that it had been announced. I don't know. I will probably play it. Only reason I hadn't played the pre-sequel is I just never got around to it, honestly.
I've heard the first one was also fantastic just because of the humor in the game.
Yeah, and the second one had really good humor as well. The main villain picking on you throughout the game was pretty fun.
Okay.
Yeah. Sort of in the vein of Portal, because
Hmm. Yeah,
that was one
definitely.
of the best examples of the main villain
Oh,
throughout the game.
I still need to play those. I'm so sorry.
Do it.
What?
Like the first one is like 2
Why are you?
hours.
I know, and I have them both. I even have them both on console. If I even wanted to try the console versions, I've got
Heck,
them in that room. But
even the second one, which is spectacular,
I have the orange box.
is like less than 10 hours long.
Yes, I know, I know,
Unless you suck at it.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
So our last story that I had queued up. Actually, kind of tied into that hard mode discussion. The one that you had sent, Brian, about delete your Zelda Breath of the Wild game save.
Yes.
You kind of wanted to talk about.
I'm
I actually, whenever I was reading that, it was one of those things where I was like, "Holy crap!" I actually kind of forgot that you don't have save slots, or like you can't just
right.
boot it up and start a fresh game. You'd have to
Right.
start a profile. I think if I went back to replay it, especially with some of the stuff they've added, where the map will track where you've gone and stuff like that,
Mhm.
I think I would definitely, if I went back to do another, if I was just like, I want to play Breath of the Wild a little bit again, I think I would. I would delete the whole thing and just start over.
I'm really tempted. I really am. I read that article and he makes some really good points in the article itself. It just I haven't done it yet. I haven't uh, committed to it yet, but especially when I have a little bit more free time available to do it, I'm strongly considering doing it because it was such a good game. And now, I mean, I can't say that my Link is overpowered in it at the point that I am in the game because I still had a bit of a struggle getting through the final dungeon. Um, but you know, it would be kind of cool to go back and start off with Link wearing no shirt and all you can find is sticks.
I think if I were to do it again, I would probably play opposite the way I did before. Before I kind of focused, as I do on most games like this, I try to focus on doing the actual storyline.
Hmm.
Um, People will be like, "Oh, Breath of the Wild didn't really have a storyline." Yes, it did. Shut up. Um, so I kind of did the whole focus on, look, we've got a problem, the world's in danger, and we kind of need to address that. I
Hmm.
think if I went and did another playthrough, I would probably do a lot more wandering, a lot more exploration, and focus on just kind of going around doing things
Right.
rather than pursuing the story as much.
Right. Yeah, same here, because I've seen some videos. Some of that stuff is fun. I never did figure out how to do the shield surfing, to be honest, so maybe I'd do that.
Now I can only imagine that scene from the cartoon
Yeah,
where he throws the bomb and he jumps on it with a shield and he just flies through the air.
Go.
flies straight.
Yeah, straight through the air, like he's on the rush jet.
Yeah. All right.
Um, I'm actually curious because I haven't really looked into it yet. What support they're adding for the Labo VR thing? Because Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey are getting features with that.
Yeah, I haven't looked into that yet either. It's one of those things I'll take a look at later, but
Yeah,
it's just one of those like I was barely even aware that they had mentioned anything about it. I had seen the picture of Mario holding the Labo, but
yeah,
okay, so I guess they're doing some sort of like kind of VR sort of stuff, but I hadn't looked into it further.
yeah. So
There's
so
a.
far, those are the two games that they've talked about having features for them.
Yeah,
I think that the best thing that I've seen or heard about the Labo was Video Game Donkey's video. So if you haven't checked that out, a little free.
little free
It's
little free plug for Dougie that he totally needs a plug from a first podcast with no viewers or subscribers.
but seriously, check out that video. It's pretty good.
Okay. Well, the last the last thing I had that I was wanting to mention, it's not so much of a story for discussion, but just something I wanted to comment on is are the two of you aware of who Shirley Curry is?
Yeah, we talked about it the other day.
Elder Scrolls grandma.
Yeah,
Ryan, are you familiar with her?
I think yeah, I think I've heard of her. I don't know a whole lot about her, but
She's a YouTuber. She's in her 80s, her late 80s, and I think Skyrim is the game she plays most, but she loves video games. And someone had done an analysis whenever Elder Scrolls 6 was announced, and said it would probably be 6 years before we would expect to actually see it. And so she tweeted, that it's kind of that's so sad for her to hear because there's a chance that she won't be alive.
right,
Because that would put her at 94 years old when it actually releases. And she's not in ailing health. She's in good health and everything, but it's just one of those, when you're 88 years old, you know that there's a chance that 6 to 10 years aren't guaranteed.
right. You just have to face that.
And so she said, that was sad. Well, a Reddit community got a discussion going about she should be added to the game, and then a petition started going on change.org to get Bethesda to put her in the game. And they did some sort of presentation recently, like they showed a video about some of the stuff that they're doing to make Skyrim, and they're using this new technology for basically using AI along with motion capture to make more believable NPCs and characters.
Hmm.
And she was in the video, so she was taken out to Bethesda Studios, and she is being put in the game.
Nice.
So I just thought that was really cool. I always think it's neat whenever someone has done that much focus on a game, and I mean she spent most of her YouTube focus on the Elder Scrolls and that, and so seeing companies kind of recognize that, because I mean to some extent, if you think about it, when that comes out, she may not be here anymore, but when it comes out, or if she is, she can play it for however long, and then 10 years from now, 15, 20, 25 years from now, to some extent, she's immortalized in that game because of her passion for the series.
Mm-hmm.
So
Cool.
I just think those sort of stories are cool. I know Warcraft has done that with a few people, and
Yeah.
so I anytime they do something like that, especially if it's for someone not a celebrity, like
Oh,
someone
yeah.
just YouTube, or just a gamer, or a story of someone like that, I think it's always pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's very cool.
So,
Lucky her.
yeah. Oh. So that wraps up gaming news. Our next segments are actually, in general, not just today, but in general, I suspect would be shorter. So hey, we got through everything we did, including an introductory segment in the 2 hours that we were expecting. So we'll still
Not
keep
bad.
on going here, but yay us, we actually kind of stayed on a schedule.
It'll probably be better next time. I'll try to ramble less. No, I won't.
Or will you ramble more?
Can
I'll
it be
try to
both?
ramble less.
Yeah.
Keep it down, Philip.
Phil just yak 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 yak. Okay, so basically next we're just going to go over some trailers and upcoming games that are releasing this week. We don't have any trailers to actually go through, and that would probably be more for later on when we're actually able to look at things. We got to be careful about that though, because even showing trailers, people get uppity about companies get uppity about that's
Yeah.
copyright and all that. Even though technically, I'm like, isn't it free advertising that you're just, hey, look, here's their trailer, you should go check it out? Seems
Yeah,
weird. Seems weird to me that they get that prickly about it, but you could still do something where it's not on screen. You just kind of watch it and then talk about it or react to it. But
react.
True.
down the road, we'll talk about that further. But for this week, on April 9th, there's actually a lot of stuff coming out. Shovel Knight Showdown comes out on PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch.
Mm-hmm.
Bendy and the Ink Machine comes out on PS4 and Xbox One. That's currently on Switch, and it had a physical release as a GameStop exclusive.
Oh wow. I didn't
Uh,
know about the physical release. I had heard of the game at PAX West actually. But anyway,
yeah,
carry on.
I've picked it up. I haven't played it yet. It's one of those that I picked it up as like, I'll try it, or eventually I'll realize this thing is skyrocketed in value, and I'll just download a digital one and keep mine sealed. One of the two.
Right.
Dangerous Driving is coming out on PC, PS4, and Xbox One. Falcon Age on PSVR, which at first I was kind of like, whatever. A lot of the PSVR things I'm kind of curious about, but Falcon Age I saw a little video of, and it looks quite adorable. And in VR, you can apparently, with the Falcon on your hand, you can move your hand around, and much like birds do, the bird will basically try to keep its head in one place, and its body will move, so its neck stretches, and it's just like, okay, this is funny and adorable. I'm going to look into it.
Yeah.
Hearthstone is getting its Rise of Shadows release this week, and then Shovel Knight Treasure Trove comes out on PS4 and Switch. And then on April 10th, this one's actually weird. On April 10th, Vaporum releases on PS4 and Xbox One. On April 11th, Vaporum releases on Switch.
What?
The next day.
I was like, wait, what? And then a game called Weedcraft Inc. releases on PC this week on April 11th as well. I don't really know anything about any of these games. I mean, I know what Shovel Knight is, but I don't know specifically what Showdown and Treasure Trove are. Treasure Trove is a new game, right?
I'm not sure. I've played the original, and I have some of the DLC because when I purchased the original, apparently it came with the pass for any DLC. Um, I loved the original game; it was fantastic. I just haven't played any beyond that.
Yeah.
So I don't really know much about the new stuff.
Yeah, I have to look into it sometime then.
Yeah, it's a very nice throwback to NES classics like
Yeah.
Mario and Zelda 2, stuff like that.
Yeah. So
I know that some people might, get a little irked about the idea of it being anything like Zelda 2, but it kind of was. and it was good for it.
It was Zelda 2 as Zelda 2 should be.
I need to go back and give that game another go, especially since it's on the Switch now. If you have the Nintendo Online.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up gaming discussion. So the next segments may be even shorter. So movies, what movies we've been watching? So I'll start. Brian, have you seen a movie in this past week? You watched
That
watched any good movies?
third how to train your dragon. It wasn't bad. It wrapped up the trilogy nicely, I think. So
I don't think I ever saw. No, I saw the second. I did see the first two. I liked the first one a lot, and I've seen the second at some point, but I just hadn't thought about seeing the third. I'll see it probably when it comes out on Blu-ray. I'll wait till it's on Blu-ray and they do a trilogy release, so it's all three on one like slim disc.
that makes sense. Yeah.
And then Phil and I saw. We actually saw Shazam last Thursday. It's good. I liked it. It's not the greatest superhero movie ever made, but it's good and it's fun.
Yeah.
It's definitely. I think kids are gonna like it a lot more. Like probably also worth noting, I'm not a huge DC guy. Like I didn't grow up reading DC that much, so I don't really know Shazam really well. Obviously, someone who's read the comics and knows the characters and really enjoyed those characters are going to enjoy the movie more, assuming that is actually done well to the comics. From
I was about to say,
from
it
what
could
I've
go
seen,
either way there.
from what I've seen comments, I've seen people say that a lot of the stuff, that if I was watching, I was kind of like, well, this kind of seems like a weird decision, but okay, is actually stuff that is from the comic. So I'm assuming that comics fans will probably lean towards it was well done. Um, it does kind of still throw things weird because I'm like, okay, the DC extended universe where all the movies are kind of interconnected, that's kind of been announced to be done. They're not going to be focusing on that, but there's little things in Shazam where it's like, okay, but they still are. So, and I know Shazam was probably filming and probably even wrapped up in post production whenever they made the announcement that they're kind of stepping away from doing a shared universe focus. But yeah, I don't know. It was one that I enjoyed it. I liked it as I watched it. Now that it's been a few days, I think back on it, I'm like, it might be a little forgettable. Like, there's not a whole lot that really super stands out to me as I really like this part, I really like that part, but I thought it's worth seeing. I'll buy it when it comes out on Blu-ray just to have a copy, and I'll watch it again once I get it on Blu-ray.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to probably check it out. I've heard good things about it. I heard it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's a fun movie.
Definitely doesn't. Of course, the character is not as serious as others. So
true.
Although that kind of makes me now wish. It kind of makes me more disappointed that DC didn't do well, because now I would kind of like to see a movie in the future where Ben Affleck's Batman was teamed up with Shazam.
Yeah, I got nothing on that. So.
And Phil probably will never have too much to add to that, because outside of seeing the films on opening release when we go as a group down here, you don't really watch movies.
Not really.
Okay, so moving into kind of similar to the start, what have you guys been watching and reading this week outside of movies? Brian?
I saw the first 3 episodes of the House on Haunted Hill, I think it's called.
Is that on Netflix?
Yes. No, The Haunting of Hill House. I'm sorry.
That's right.
I don't know why I drew a blank on that. I've only watched 3 hours of it.
What is this show I'm watching?
That's right.
Haunting House something.
There's a hill in there somewhere. I don't know. It's good. It's not. There are a couple jump scares here and there in the first 3 episodes. I'm thinking it's maybe a slow burn as far as the horror aspect of it. It's definitely more of a psychological horror than. It's definitely not a gore horror, at least so far as what I've seen. But it's good. I like what I've seen so far. It's got the same director as Oculus, which I liked. And what else did he do? I can't remember off the top of my head, but I do remember. Oh, I think he did Hush, if I remember correctly. So look that up. But yeah, it's pretty good. You might check it out if you like horror at all.
Okay. Have you been reading anything?
Oh,
I know that makes you sad.
I've been reading a lot about the other projects that I'm working on. So
No.
I'm not trying to like. I don't want to say what they are. I'm not trying to like promote myself on your podcast. So.
Feel free if you wish.
Oh, okay. I am working on the 21 days of video game music right now. I'm actually doing a composition today, trying to learn more about the composition and how to do it. So maybe one day I can actually work my way into doing it. It's something that I've been kind of interested in since even high school, I would say. Philip, you can attest to that. I did a little bit of composition back in high school,
Yep.
back in the 90s. So. I'm actually starting to get a little bit more serious into it, and if you check out my Twitter at Servo1999, you can. Yeah, that's right. I'm self-promoting now. Uh, if you check out my Twitter feed, you can actually go and listen to some of the compositions that I've done. They're rough drafts for sure, but I feel like that there's some promise in a few of them. So
Cool. As you go down that, then eventually, I can tell you, hey, Brian, you should do a little short composition. So there's some intro and outro music for this podcast, and you'll tell me, cool. What are you gonna pay me? And I'll go, damn it, figured it out.
I could think about it. I
I'll
could
send
definitely
you
think
I'll
about
send you 25 exposure bucks.
it. That's right.
You're
If you're serious about that, give me some ideas musically of what you're kind of looking for, and I could probably start working on it once the 21 days is up. This is day 7, so I got a couple
Yeah,
weeks yet.
yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, keep us up to date on that, on how that goes.
Will do.
That's something that I've kind of thought. Our friend from the school days, Jason.
Hmm.
I kind of have thought before, like he still is kind of into video games. He doesn't play as much as he used to, just because time and everything. But I'm like, dude, you got your degree in music theory. You've got
Right.
your master's. Now you've gotten your doctorate. Have you ever thought of like composing, like even on the side, going and like doing some music composition for indie games and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's freelance. You
Because
can.
what else are you gonna do with a music degree
Right.
other than teach?
Right.
Either you're gonna teach, you're gonna compose, or I don't know what else you're gonna do really.
Right.
So yeah. All right. Well, cool. Phil, have you watched or read anything this week?
right.
So
really.
no.
I worked a lot.
That doesn't sound like fun.
Yeah, and I have to be awake at 7.
Tonight.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fine. You still got like 7
I have a day one to work with. So, yeah.
Lovely. All right. Well, the last segment I got here is so trailers, upcoming movies, or anime. So there's 4 things that I was going to touch on. I think this will be fairly quick because they're just trailers. How much can you really talk about them? So the first coming out this week is Hellboy. Brian, if I
Yes.
recall, you liked the first Hellboy film.
I did.
Have
And
you
the
watched the
second.
trailer for the new Hellboy film?
I did today as I was doing my homework for the podcast.
What are
And
your thoughts on the Hellboy trailer for the new film?
I think it looks interesting. I'm surprised how low the guy playing Hellboy's voice got. I didn't realize his voice went that low. Uh, just from his Stranger Things character. Um, uh, I don't know. It seems a little more serious than the other movies, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. That kind of has yet to be seen. Um, I mean, they had their dark parts, but there was humor in there too, and I didn't really see that as much in
Mm.
this trailer. So that's a concern of mine. But
So the thing that irks me the most about it is I can't look at it and just feel it, every time I look at it, it just feels off to me
mhm,
because I think it largely boils down into because his hair is loose.
Yeah.
And I know that may sound weird, but I'm like, every time I look at him, instead of seeing Hellboy, it just looks like generic demon from horror movie.
Yeah.
Like, especially because they keep showing him with the full horns a lot. That and I think the prosthetics did not. I don't think they did as good of a job. Like the prosthetics, his face almost seems less expressive, which
Right.
is strange because Perlman had the big square jaw on, and I don't know. It's just something about it that the new one he just looks more like generic demon
Right.
and not like Hellboy. I think the Perlman makeup did such a well job of emulating those squared lines of the comics.
Mm-hmm.
And in the comics, he always did have his hair back, as a friend of mine from where I used to work had pointed out. There's a reason for that because the character is a huge fan of samurai films. That's why
Right.
he has the samurai hairstyle.
Hmm.
So having it with that loose hair, it just I don't know. It just looks weird to me for some reason. And then beyond that, I'm like I don't know something about the trailer. Just it feels almost generic-y feeling to me.
Right.
And I think some of that is because they're going straight to this big, huge, world-ending threat right off the bat. And early on, they were talking about leaning heavier into the horror roots of the stories.
Mm-hmm.
I think from that, I was kind of almost expecting they were going to go a little bit smaller scale of the investigative, paranormal investigation aspects of what they used to be in the comics. So I don't know. It's one of them I'm just not really excited to go see. I'd probably watch it on Netflix or maybe pick up the Blu-ray if it was really well spoken of, or maybe I'd go see like a $5 showing or for a matinee. But it hasn't hooked me enough to say, yeah, I want to go see that on opening night.
Right. Yeah, I don't think I'll see it in the theater either, honestly.
What I'd like to see them do is the third Del Toro film just do it as an animated film, just to final out whatever the story was supposed to be.
Right.
And just do it as an animated film because it shouldn't be hard to get. I mean, one thing that was pointed out is, of course, Perlman can't keep playing the part in live action because he's definitely getting older. But doing it in animated, he's voiced him before, and you could bring in some of the other actors. I'm sure they'd come back to just do the voice acting, and they've done 2 movies animated already. So doing a third movie that is actually the culmination, what would have been the trilogy's third installment, I think would be a good in between.
Yeah, that would be very cool. For sure. And yeah, I got nothing on that. Else on that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Philip, are you gonna see Hellboy?
No,
Okay.
not immediately. No.
Okay.
And then the next film coming out is probably this little indie film that people haven't heard of called Avengers Endgame.
Oh my God. So speaking of Avengers Endgame, I'm gonna throw this in there. I saw earlier today on Facebook, so totally legit. The directors said that there is fake footage in some of the trailers.
Yeah,
Surprised me.
I've seen the article that had an interview about it where they said essentially they are at the point now when they make a trailer that they film scenes for the trailer
Mm-hmm.
because there is a story they want the trailer to tell
Mm.
to get you excited for the movie.
Hmm.
The story that the trailer is telling is not necessarily the story the movie is telling.
Hmm.
And a reason for it is because it has become so hard for movies to give anything to be a surprise,
Mm-hmm.
just because how much information gets on the internet and everything that back in the day you saw 1 or 2 trailers, knew nothing, and you went and saw a movie and holy crap, Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's uncle.
Right. Hi, Toby.
So yeah, see, he agrees that the lack of surprise is affecting movies.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there is apparently some fake. I just wonder what it is.
Right.
So I mean, I saw the very first trailer that came out, which was beautifully done by using a lot of the footage from the original films of each of the original Avengers,
Right.
and then very very little for the actual movie itself. I thought that was perfectly done, and then I saw the teaser that was released the day tickets went on sale.
Right.
beyond that, I've not watched anything else, and I probably will not for the next 3 weeks.
Same.
So, but I would love to see it finally topple Avatar as the highest grossing worldwide film. I'm not sure it's possible, but I would love to see it happen. At the very least, I want it to beat Titanic.
Damn it. I don't know. This one's so long. I don't know if everybody's going to want to go sit in
Titanic
the
was
theater
just
that
as
long.
long.
So long.
Yeah,
I haven't seen Titanic. I couldn't even say. I'm
Yeah,
the guy.
2 VHSs.
Oh yeah. I don't remember the length the VHS could hold, but yeah, that would make for a very long movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
roughly 2 hours per
Oh.
on the normal standard play or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So then the next movie that I had listed, I'm gonna actually skip it just because it's coming out a little bit later. I think it's in July, so
Yes.
we can talk about it closer to. But I will talk about the last one just because the first teaser just came out. What do we think about the Joker trailer?
I believe that from a cinematic standpoint and an acting standpoint, it looks pretty remarkable. Like what I've seen shows me that it's probably going to be an incredibly well-made movie.
Hmm.
I just feel really weird about giving Joker any kind of a concrete origin story because the character is not supposed to have an origin story that is necessarily true. Like
Right, the famous
history of the character.
yeah the famous Killing Joke story that gave him a solid origin and actually told his history still included the caveat of it's being told by Joker, as well as him saying if he has an origin, he prefers it to be multiple choice.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like even the story that kind of gave him a iconic origin story still kind of denied it being an accurate origin story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm kind of in the same. I'm still not. I'm still kind of unless there's some rumor that the trailer that teaser and probably some more of the trailers are going to take a page from the Russos with Endgame and only show from probably the first half of the movie.
Hmm.
If that's the case, then it might be like towards the end of it we actually see him as the more comic book iconic Joker with the actual full white face, red lips, and green hair. So far, we've just got the green hair and the white face, but it's definitely just clown makeup. Like the blue nose and the little blue under the eyes and all that. I'm just like he looks more like a variety of other clowns
Right.
rather than Joker. I'm also still thrown. I know it's an Elseworld story. It's not actually, it's not a Batman story, but it's still weird that we've got this Joker who visibly looks like he's in his late 30s to early 40s, and yet Bruce Wayne looks like he's 10 years old.
Right.
And like this, from what we've been told of the script is, or from what we've been told of the synopsis is that this involves Joker going after Thomas Wayne.
Hmm.
And it's just weird to me to have a Joker who is Joker going after the father before Bruce is ever even around, and it's very strange. Now, unless it went down a direction of like I was saying, if this went full Elseworlds and just like at the midpoint of the movie, Joker kills Bruce Wayne
Hmm.
and Thomas, like it sets Thomas up to become kind of like they kind of do sort of a spin off the Flashpoint story, and Thomas becomes Batman instead of Bruce.
Yeah.
That could kind of be definitely interesting to see unfold. I get the feeling that this will never have anything involved with Batman in any way, shape, or form. It's entirely a character study of Joker.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just the first teaser didn't like a ton of people are saying it looks amazing and they can't wait. And I'm just like, it didn't really do it for me.
Yeah.
It just seems like it's almost Joker in name and name drops only. Like it
Right.
doesn't really Like even people are saying, "Oh, it's exactly like Joker's, supposed origin." The whole idea that one bad day can finally push someone to go insane, and I'm like, the trailer looks like he's having multiple bad days over time. Like
Right.
it doesn't look like this is like his whole point of one bad day can be the point that snaps. This looks like it's everything just goes bad, and then he, for whatever reason, goes crazy. I don't know. It just to me doesn't seem like a Joker story that I would
Should.
be expecting to be portrayed. I also think it's going to be really hard to do it without him. It's hard to do an antagonist that you loathe. It
Mhm.
has been done. There are movies where you just at the end of the film, the credits roll, and you're like, "Man, I hated that guy from start to finish. He's an asshole."
Yeah.
It's possible, but it is definitely difficult to do a story following a protagonist who you are supposed to despise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's my concern is they're going to make him a sympathetic character where you understand why he went crazy and you understand why he's doing this. Even though it's wrong for him to do it, you understand why and you kind of feel bad for him. I don't want to feel bad for the Joker.
Yeah.
I want to fully accept that this guy crazy.
Right.
This is my favorite is from the animated series. This is a villain who tried to poison the water so that fish would look like him so that he could trademark it and everyone would have to pay him money.
That's right.
Like
I remember that episode.
it's so ridiculous, but that's one of the things that works is that's why he's crazy is these ridiculous plans that no one would think to let's make fish look like me so I can trademark them. So anyhow, I don't know. I mean, like it's like Phil said, I think it'll probably be a fantastically made movie. It's
Right.
just very strange. It's
The
just
way that it's presented. Yeah.
it's a very strange choice, especially right now.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
if we were further down, if DC was being very successful, if they were spinning off like a full string of you knew what to expect, like instead of it starting off the trailer with DC, if it was
Mhm.
starting off with like DC Elseworlds,
Mhm.
where they had enough of a brand recognition of they do Elseworld stories that are basically like the what ifs and
What
the
ifs from
what could
Marvel.
have been sort of things,
Right.
then it would be more of like okay, but having it be one of the first films after they say we're not doing an interconnected thing,
Anymore. Yeah.
we're not doing an interconnected thing, but Shazam just interconnected everything, and Wonder Woman 1988 is still the same Wonder Woman from the previous film that will eventually go into Justice League. So we're not doing interconnected, but all these things still kind of are in the works that contribute
Are,
to the interconnected.
right.
They still just don't really seem to know what they want to do.
Yeah.
So that's where my concern is. And there's always the risk of confusing general audiences who don't follow stuff and don't really keep up with what's going on.
Right.
That's always a risk.
Right. I got nothing.
Yeah,
I
Okay.
it I'm interested to see what they do. I think it would be really cool if they took that. They're not going to do this, but if they took that as like one of his origin stories and
yeah.
just made multiple or added more origin stories in there.
Well, or I told Phil recently, like it would be cool if they did something like you like go back and you watch The Sixth Sense. First
Mhm.
time you watch it, you go through it, blah 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 blah. You get to the end and the big twist, and you're like, oh, really? Then when you go
Right.
back and rewatch it again, you actually realize everything has been filmed from the perspective that that twist is in place.
Right.
And so it's one of those once you know what you're looking for, it's been in front of you the whole time.
Right.
It would be cool if the Joker film you went through the whole thing, and then at the end of it, even after the credits, in a mid credits or a post credits, you
Mhm.
had a scene of Joker is in his cell, like talking to Harley Quinn or Dr. Quinzel when she's still his therapist.
Mhm.
And you get the moment of, oh, this whole movie is Joker telling someone his origin story.
Mhm.
And then with that in mind, when you go back and rewatch it, you notice there's actually inconsistencies in the film where the story doesn't entirely line up properly, like things
Right.
don't make sense. And so then there's like at least a little bit of a, well, okay, is this really an accurate story, or is this just Joker's telling another version of his origin that may or may not be true?
Right.
Something like that would be, I would be totally on board with something like that. I would like to see something like that play out, where at least at the end of it, you get a little bit of a acknowledgement of maybe this really isn't his origin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be cool for sure.
So anyhow, enough yammering about Joker's film coming up. So that's the last actual segment that I had. Closing, I just had a closing segment of just random topics. If there's anything in general that you want to bring up and review and go over.
I've got to go to bed. Like I'm with a
Phil?
day one trainee. I normally go to bed at 11.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Can I got nothing there? Can I do that last part?
go to bed.
No.
Oh, you
The-
want to
the bit.
you want to take the bit? Okay, hit
Yeah,
us. So
I do.
so the for anyone who listens to this at any point in the future, the idea here is take two random games and put
Mhm.
them together, like you take two different games that are totally opposite, put them together, mash them into a single game, and what would
Mhm.
that game be like?
Mhm.
So apparently Brian has two he wants to actually suggest. What you got?
Got one. Sekiro and Nintendogs.
What?
Nintendogs with the difficulty of Sekiro. So it'd be like taking care of an actual dog, or kind of like the Tamagotchi.
But it's a unrealistic fantastical world, so you're gonna have to go even above and beyond
That's right.
that. There are going to be other things you've got to do, like your dog gets away from you and you have to basically journey an obstacle course in order to get to them in time before they
That's right.
run into a forest or
And
something.
fight an animal control guy who's also a ninja.
Okay. See, when you first said it, my thought was Nintendo, so you play as a dog and everyone else in the game is a dog, but it's like Sekiro.
Yes, that also would work. But I want you to be the owner. Actually, was my idea. You're the
Okay.
owner. It's Nintendogs, but with the difficulty level of Sekiro. You
I
know.
kind of like the idea of playing as the dog and going through a dog's daily life, but it's like
But it's insane.
yeah. So you've got the things like you've got the level where your owner tries to give you a bath, and you have to avoid it.
You would definitely have to be a Shiba for that.
Yeah, you have to fight. You have to fight off the owner to avoid the bath.
I could get behind that too. Yeah.
Okay. Or
Night, night.
you get outside and you've got the epic combat. So you've got the entire level is like actually playing through it in like Sekiro levels of fantastic action and violence. But then after you finish it, there's a cutscene at the end of each level that shows what actually happened. So the epic battle is actually just you chased a squirrel across the yard.
Right.
But the gameplay is your perspective of the world as the dog, and then the cutscenes just show you what was actually happening.
I could get behind that. We need to get to work on that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's. In fact, let's just go ahead. Let me look it up. We'll see. We'll just ask for a small percentage cut. We'll send the idea to From Software. Just let them tackle this. This can be their next project.
Next big game.
It could be a Switch exclusive too if they go all in with the Nintendogs.
It's true. I think
All
they should
right.
do it.
Well, we'll wrap that up now. Let's do one last go through. Go ahead and pitch your Twitter channel out there, your Twitter account out there, and start with Phil because he's got to go to sleep.
Well, right now, I guess I'll throw out my profile name because I have actually changed it for the first time ever. Phil's Crafted World of Persona. At Terrence Harkin is my Twitter handle. That's basically it.
Brian?
I am at Servo1999. Right now I'm going by Thomas Servo, but I think I may change that to give it a Spanish flair to Tomas Cervito.
And that's Twitter is the best place right now where you've been putting your composition stuff.
Yes, yeah. I've been putting composition stuff. I don't think I put up every day, but it links to my SoundCloud account where you can access all of the days that I've done. So.
Okay. And I'm Jeff. You can find me on Twitter at SwiftNinjaFox. I've also got www.ninjafoxgames.com. And then if you search on YouTube, the site you're on right now is actually not the long-term one. I had some trouble with getting the live streaming to work. But there is a NinjaFox Games YouTube channel that I'll be taking this video, this live stream, and loading over to there. Going forward, that'll probably be the main one that'll get used for additional videos, and if there's anything taken. Eventually, I am hoping to start doing some streaming. There is I do have a NinjaFox Games Twitch channel registered. I just haven't started rolling with it yet. I tried starting it with Resident Evil 2 recently, and essentially everything I did that night was, you cannot share this video at this time. So I was like, all right, I'm not far enough in to actually start streaming. So. All right. Well,
You'll get there.
we will aim on doing another podcast next week. The goal is to start trying to do just on Sundays from 10:30 to 12:30. Obviously, we may go over a little bit. Phil, in the future, if we're going over and you do need to bail early, that's fine too.
Okay.
Eventually, I'll probably start bringing in a fourth guest. That'll be like a rotating person, so just someone from the Twitter zoo or anything like. RG was mentioning it. If he had advance notice, he'd probably hop in and join on some of these.
Yeah.
So, but there's a few other people that I talk to on Twitter I'd like to bring in and talk to. And then there's various stuff coming up in the future. There's a retro game meetup this upcoming Saturday, so I'll probably talk about that if I find anything there. And then I'm going to start doing some YouTube videos about with game hunting, and I've got some plans for that. My own game hunt, my collection is nearing its end. I'm getting closer and closer to having everything I'm looking for. So I might start looking to open that up and start looking for trying to find some games at really good prices for other people and making that a thing. So if you're interested in that sort of aspect, stay tuned. And as it becomes more of a concrete idea, I will update more information.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if anyone hears this, we'll see you next time, which would be April 14th.
All right.
All right.
Take care, guys.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.